In a sun-drenched village filled with windmills and flowers, a voice urgently calls out for the village chief. A little girl with pink hair and green eyes holds up a note, seeking a signature to cancel her dad's donation. She stands quietly behind an older man with glasses as he sits by a fireplace, carefully reviewing her request. The village chief, a man with a thick mustache, studies the handwritten note asking to stop the donation. Elsewhere, a pink-haired young man thinks to himself that donation cancellations are rare, and he'll have to be more careful in the future. The little girl pleads with the chief, her cute, teary-eyed expression hitting him like a Cupid's arrow. Mission accomplished. She laughs gleefully as she runs off through the sunny woods with the signed paper. A smug chibi version of the girl celebrates her victory, thinking to herself that her irresistible charm always wins. Looking at the crumpled paper, she reflects that her dad's biggest problem is being far too kind. She believes that instead of giving away money they don't have, they should be saving to build a better life for themselves. But despite his flaws, she loves her kind dad and makes a heartfelt vow to take care of him forever. While walking through the woods, she's stopped by another girl who compliments her dress, prompting her to proudly introduce herself as Cian. Cian internally praises her own adorable features, from her cotton candy hair to her meadow green eyes. She suddenly reveals that she's living inside the world of a novel she only read halfway through, The Life of Melodia. The novel, she recalls, was a fantasy epic about the journey of the angelic Saint Melodia. But in this new life, she isn't the main character, not a saint and not a princess. She's just an ordinary girl, living a quiet life in the countryside with her loving father. Adapting to a baby's body was tough, and the being who reincarnated her also gave her a handicap to stop her from acting too much like an adult. That handicap forces her to accidentally use baby talk, which is more than a little frustrating for her adult mind. As dusk settles, she daydreams about the meat dishes for dinner and wishes her dad would come home soon. But her tiny body can't keep up with her thoughts, and she's suddenly hit by a wave of sleepiness. Just as she's about to nod off on a stone wall, the sudden appearance of a fully armored knight startles her. It's not just one. A whole squad of knights surrounds her, asking if there are any adults nearby. Their mustached leader gets straight to the point. They're searching for a man with black hair and red eyes. Instantly on high alert, Cian senses danger and lies, insisting there's no adult like that around here. She thinks of her dad, the kindest, purest man she knows, who just so happens to have black hair. He's the type of guy who would happily volunteer to work in other people's fields without asking for anything in return. Cian clenches her little fist, thinking her dad is so good, he would even take on someone else's debt. But seeing these menacing knights, she starts to worry his good nature has finally landed him in some serious trouble. Determined to protect him, she steels herself, deciding she has to find a clever way to make them leave. The lead knight isn't buying it, stating they've confirmed the location based on a report. Cian tries to activate her ultimate weapon, cuteness, and sweetly tells the knights they should leave now. It fails spectacularly. The knights are completely unfazed, and Cian panics internally when her charm doesn't work. She quickly plays it cool, puffing out her cheeks and thinking to herself that the fools totally fell for her act. As the knights seem to consider retreating, a tiny Cian secretly celebrates, thinking she's saved her dad once again. She resolves to grill her dad about what's going on later and figure out more ways to protect him. Her thoughts of protecting him are cut short when a familiar voice urgently calls her name, Cian. It's her dad, running towards her, completely oblivious to the armored men waiting. Cian panics, frantically waving her arms to stop him from coming any closer. Too late. Her dad, a handsome man with shocking red eyes, misreads the situation, thinking she missed his signal that the men were leaving. He sweeps Cian into a protective hug and confronts the knights. Cian mentally facepalms. He walked right into the trap. Held tight in her father's arms, Cian clenches her fist, ready to throw down if these men try to hurt him. The knight ignores her, speaking directly to her father. The message is to finish your little game and return now. Cian's blood runs cold as she recognizes a name from the novel, Mirmod. The dreaded crest of the Duchy of Mirmod appears, a place represented by a grim reaper. She remembers it as the most infamous place in the Empire, a nest of vipers where murder is a daily occurrence. It's a land of shadows, ruled by a ruthless figure who commands legions of the damned. Looking up at her father with wide, pleading eyes, Cian hopes it's all a misunderstanding. They're wrong. Right, Dad? Her father's expression grows grim, his red eyes hardening in the fading light. I understand, he says. Tell him I'll go. The wicked devils of Mirmod always get what they want. A tattered purple banner, bearing a crown of thorns, hangs over a desolate and fiery landscape. Before a roaring crowd and a grim scaffold, a speaker declares the complete eradication of the Mirmod lineage. Under the cover of night, a grand carriage rumbles through a dark, foreboding forest. Inside, Cien soberly recalls that this is exactly how the villainous Mirmod family met their end in the novel. She remembers them as a despised family of villains, where brutal power struggles and daily deaths were just business as usual. And now, to her horror, her carriage has arrived at the gates of their infamous castle. She is now a child of the notorious Mirmod family, and she's absolutely terrified. Her father, however, just smiles warmly, asking if his daughter is okay after the long trip. But Cien knows her biggest problem isn't the castle itself. It's her father's kind and hopelessly soft-hearted nature. She worries he's just a disposable side character, too gentle to survive in a den of vipers like this. This is a man who'd rather daydream about ribbon colors for her hair than fight in a bloody war for succession. In a place like this, she can only imagine one gruesome end for a man so good. She lets out a long, worried sigh. With a single tear in her eye, she ponders their grim situation. She's wondering how in the world they're supposed to survive in a place like this. Her dad gently pats her head, telling her she must be tired and should get some sleep. She internally panics. Sleep is the last thing on her mind when she's busy worrying about their survival. Her peaceful life as a simple country girl is officially over, and she's not happy about it. She flashes back to her idyllic days of catching crayfish and eating stew, dreaming simple dreams. But as someone now on her second life, she vows to use every bit of her knowledge to fight back. With fierce determination in her eyes, she resolves to reclaim her happy life with her dad. Hugging him tight, she makes a promise. "I'll protect you no matter what." Their journey ends as the massive doors of the audience chamber loom before them. She isn't afraid, she tells herself, clutching his shirt. She has the advantage of a second life. Her dad just smiles, gently telling Cien that she doesn't need to protect him. His hand rests firmly on her back, a silent promise. His expression hardens as he looks ahead, vowing to be the one to protect his precious daughter. Later, he watches her sleep, softly whispering her name. He remembers their simple, happy days back in the countryside village. Overcome with love and determination, he pulls her into a fierce, protective hug. She can feel the strength in his arms, thick and corded with muscle from years of hard farm labor. To her, those calloused hands are proof of the difficult life he's lived to raise her. "No," I said, "I'll protect you," she insists, but it comes out as adorable baby talk, making her dad laugh. He teases her, calling her his little puppy as he playfully tickles her. She decides she'll protect her teasing dad too. He looks at her lovingly, telling her that all he wants is for her to be happy. As he pinches her cheek, he asks her to live like a normal kid, happy and healthy. She quietly takes in his heartfelt wish, but a dark premonition hits her. In an evil family like this, just being a good dad isn't enough to protect anyone. Back in the present, he asks if she understands, and all she can do is sigh. When he looks at her with such earnest love, she knows she has no choice but to give in. At dinner, he tells her to apologize to the carrots she won't eat because their feelings are hurt. This guy. He warns that if she doesn't apologize, the carrots will say ouch, leaving her completely speechless. She buries her face in his shirt, realizing he always says the same kinds of things to cheer her up. He always tells her she's a good child who deserves all the love in the world. His simple, loving words are all she's ever needed to feel happy. Suddenly, their dinner is interrupted by the arrival of an elegant woman with piercing red eyes and an icy demeanor. Her father's grip tightens as he greets the newcomer with a strained voice. "It's been a while, Mother." The elegant woman scoffs at being called Mother, while her son icily asks if he should just call her Duchess Rucella. Cien is stunned by the raw tension, and the name Rucella sets off major alarm bells in her head. She remembers Duchess Rucella from the novella Ruthless Prodigy, who slaughtered her rivals to take over the Mage Tower. In the original story, Rucella was a retired old woman, but Cien knows she was once the head of a truly villainous house. Cien formulates a new plan. Get on her grandma's good side and convince her to help them escape. But the Duchess immediately crushes that hope, reminding her son that he's trapped here for good. She lays out his grim options: become the successor, be exiled as a fugitive, or simply die. Her dad listens silently to the cruel ultimatum. his face grim as Cian trembles in his arms. Cian's mind races. Every path, even becoming the successor, is a death sentence for her gentle father. Her expression hardens, filled with a new resolve. She decides to treat the Duchess like a tiger in its den. If she's smart, she just might survive this. Suddenly, all eyes are on Cian as she nervously clutches a piece of paper. The Duchess gestures dismissively towards Cian's dress, calling it nothing more than cloth. Cian flashes back to her dad lovingly hand-sewing clothes for her, making the insult cut deep. She proudly declares that her dad made it for her, but the Duchess is completely unimpressed. At the head of the table, her father formally introduces Cian, telling his mother to greet her granddaughter. Cian shyly buries her face in his shirt, managing only a muffled hello. She despairs, realizing she can't escape on her own, but then remembers one crucial piece of information. A brilliant, mischievous idea lights up her face. When the Duchess asks why Cian is here, her dad simply explains that he wanted his mother to meet his daughter. The Duchess tries to force a conversation about succession, but her son deflects, mentioning a demon's case he'd rather discuss later. Cian is shocked. She has absolutely no memory of a demon's case from the novel. Her dad is thrown back by a blast of magic as the Duchess coldly remarks that his arrogance hasn't changed. A cruel, knowing smirk plays on the Duchess's lips. Cian panics, realizing her dad just broke a cardinal rule: never interrupt the Duchess. She imagines a grim future where they fail to escape and she ends up as bird feed. With their backs against the wall, she decides it's time to play her final card. With newfound purpose, she hops down from her chair. She tells her worried father she'll be right back and walks away. Her dad is left utterly bewildered, asking what she could possibly be doing. Cian marches toward the head of the table as the Duchess mockingly calls her a little honey jar. She stops directly in front of the fearsome matriarch of the Mirmod family. Looking up, she unleashes the most powerful, radiant smile in her arsenal. She stands before the Duchess, clasping her hands and looking utterly adorable. With a blindingly sweet smile, she chirps, "Nice to meet you." And for the final blow, she looks her straight in the eye and calls her Grandma. Cian puts all her hope into this one plan, praying Operation Charm Grandma will work. As the Duchess stares down at her in silence, Cian begs her internally to see her as a cute grandchild. But Cian remembers the Duchess from the novella woman who stared blankly at the scene of a brutal massacre. She also recalls Rukella's greatest secret. She covertly saved children's lives using a hidden passage. That passage from the novel is Cian's secret hope, and she's betting everything that it's real. Cian knows that despite her one good deed, Rukella is still feared as an evil sorceress by everyone. Her charm offensive fails spectacularly, as the Duchess remains stone-faced, and her cute smile instantly freezes. A cold sweat runs down her face as the horrifying reality sets in. Her ultimate weapon didn't work. As night falls, the foreboding atmosphere of the Mirmod mansion deepens. The Duchess formally introduces herself as the ruler of Tower's Peak, making it clear she is not to be called Grandma. Defeated, Cian decides to retreat, telling herself that at least she distracted her from Dad for a moment. She lets out a tiny, frustrated huff as she turns away. The Duchess coldly calls her awkward, making Cian feel like she's being scolded for the first time. A woman with dark hair and red eyes remarks that it's been a while since a child dared to look her in the eye, but Cian's father protectively warns his mother to mind her words. In her father's arms, Cian looks shocked, scolding her dad for daring to interrupt her grandma. The grandma gives a stern, unimpressed look, her red eyes narrowing slightly. Cian wonders why her grandma isn't blowing up at the interruption this time. Cuddling against her dad, she steels her resolve, thinking maybe she should try again. Turning back with a bright smile, she cheerfully waves and says, "Goodbye, Grandma." Her grandma gives a subtle nod in response, leaving Cian shocked that she actually got a reaction. Now standing on her own, a determined Cian thinks she has to nail the next step as a maid directs her forward. Alone in the darkened room, her father's expression turns grim as he quietly says his daughter's name. He reminisces about how much Cian has grown, recalling the day she was born. The memory of Cian's mother, a woman with long, flowing pink hair, appears as she thinks her daughter's naive stubbornness is just like her own. Snapping back to the present, her father glares at his mother, warning her not to concern herself with Cian. The woman scoffs that his concern is misplaced, since Cian's innocence will fade on its own. He retorts that she's speaking boldly, and she reminds him that he knows her temperament well. She turns away, coolly stating that she knows him all too well, which is precisely why she took him into use as a pawn. She recalls the dead woman and the daughter she spent 5 long years protecting, all while suppressing her own volatile temper. She acknowledges that while he's lost almost everything, he still has his most precious thing left, which has forged him into someone strong and ruthless. Stepping closer, she adds a chilling, however, she reminds him of the forces opposing him, but he fires back that it's all thanks to her devilish schemes, vowing that he doesn't plan on losing to anyone. He clenches his fist, thinking he won't be defeated, especially not while his daughter is still by his side. His mother simply turns and agrees. It's time to prepare for the successor training. A narrator explains the typical depiction of maids in fantasy romances, just as a smiling maid wakes Cian and announces a breakfast of beef bourguignon and macarons. Cian is presented with a lavish spread of pastries and cakes, while another maid pours her raspberry blend tea. Surrounded by desserts and doting maids, the scene seems like a perfect fairy tale morning. But as a new figure approaches, Cian's fairy tale shatters, and she can only stare in disbelief and stammer, "Maids?" Her new maids are 2 mountain-sized men in frilly uniforms, flexing their biceps and proudly introducing themselves. Looks like her new security detail moonlights as bodybuilders. Sweating nervously, Cian offers a polite greeting, reminding herself that technically, she's the one in charge here. One of the stone-faced maids informs her they'll be escorting her to the spire, leaving Cian utterly confused. Her confusion turns to horror as she learns the spire is an ancient place of execution, where disgraced family members were left to die. A lone crow on a branch seems to be blushing. As she's led up a desolate stone path, Cian worries that her naive dad has no idea he's walking into a trap. With renewed purpose, she runs ahead of her escorts, determined to get rid of the dark energy looming over this place. But her tiny legs give out, and she collapses in a fit of tears, whining that the endless stairs are killing her. Exhausted, she politely asks her maid ladies if one of them could please carry her since her legs hurt. Her maids sternly refuse, lecturing her that they don't indulge lazy muscles. Cian can't believe her bad luck. Reduced to a wobbly ghost of herself, she continues the climb, cursing the duchy, and wondering what she's supposed to do now. She finally arrives, looking like a worn-out doll, as a maid flatly informs her this will be her room. Cian is horrified to find herself in a filthy, abandoned room, filled with dust and cobwebs. Gaah. Her patience finally snaps as she lets out an ear-piercing shriek of pure rage. Livid, she fumes over their petty methods of torment, declaring that her pride as a human being won't let this insult slide, all while a maid impassively notes her 2,000 steps are complete. She realizes these maids must be working for her father's enemies, and desperately tries to remember if the novel she read mentioned them. Her first priority is clear. She needs to get out of this musty room before she can plan her next move. With a clunk, the heavy door handle turns and the door creaks open. A hand reaches out from the darkness into the room. With a devious grin, Cian realizes it's her own hand. She found the key and triumphantly declares, "Found it." The scene shifts to a peaceful cottage nestled in a forest under a starry night sky. Her father watches over her as she sleeps, sighing in relief that her fever seems to have gone down. Weakly, Cian tells her dad she's fine and urges him to get some rest too. He gently pulls the covers over her, promising to sleep beside her. He watches her tenderly, his heart aching as he recalls just how sick she had been. Suddenly, Cian wakes up with a start, finding herself not in bed, but in a tropical jungle, where her dad, Ashid and Leonhardt, are digging with shovels as her dad asks if she's feeling better. Her dad sweats from his work, explaining he prepared a special fruit to make her stronger so she'll never be sick. Touched, Cian simply says his name as he vows they'll live long and healthy lives together from now on. Later that night, a surprisingly buff maid stretches, declaring it's essential while preparing a bath. Flexing by the tub, she proudly asks her colleague if her muscles have gotten bigger. The ornate faucet fills the bath, one drop at a time. The 2 maids lament that if they only had a certain magical powder, their muscles would become even stronger. They dream of its incredible effects, capable of turning a stick figure into a powerhouse. But the maids sigh, knowing the expensive powder is hoarded by everyone and is far beyond their budget. Cian suddenly appears, sweetly offering to fetch the water, but a maid quickly says she'll help Cian change instead. Now in the bath, Cian compliments their amazing muscles, leaving the 2 tough maids flustered and speechless. As they wash her hair, she playfully asks if they had any muscle-building items in the village she came from. One maid says it was more like a medicine, causing the other to have a sudden, shocking realization. Tree fruit powder. Cien gives a sly smile, confirming they had tons of coconut tree fruit powder back home, making her realize just how harsh this place really is. Outside, her dad gazes up at the foreboding castle under the starry night sky. He worries that this grim, towering place is far too dangerous for his daughter Cien to live in. He walks up a towering stone staircase, feeling the danger with every step. He recalls the terrifying rumors about the maids of the northern tower, who are feared as monstrous beasts. With a creak of the door, he peeks into her room, anxiously asking if she's okay and not feeling sick. He's met with the imposing backs of the two maids looming over his daughter, leaving him to wonder what on earth they're doing. His eyes glow with red-hot fury, as he decides that if something's wrong, he'll handle it immediately. But to his surprise, the maids are just lifting Cien into the air like a goddess, chanting, "Noble!" He stares in complete disbelief as the two maids cheer and celebrate his daughter's greatness. The man, Matthias, realizes the fearsome maids have completely fallen for Cien's overwhelming cuteness. Cien plays her part perfectly, beaming with joy as she thinks to herself that she'll only trust them. Matthias approaches, asking if she's already gotten close with the maids, and Cien runs to him, happily crying, "Dad!" He pulls her into a warm embrace, asking to spend time with her, and she cheerfully agrees, saying she always sleeps with him. As Matthias carries her away, the maids watch in awe, whispering about how different Prince Matthias is from what they expected. Cien waves an adorable goodbye to her new fans. She sweetly wishes them a good night, but a memory flashes of her father's dark side, threatening a maid about a curse for speaking ill. Matthias gently carries his daughter through the torchlit stone hallway. Cien chuckles internally at the innocent maids, recalling how her dad planted those special trees just to keep her healthy. She now realizes their entire front yard back home is filled with the rare, magical coconut trees. Tucked in bed, she asks her dad to bring her lots of the fruit, and he lovingly promises to get her anything she wants. He tenderly strokes her hair, asking if she really needs the fruit he planted, and she cuddles closer, saying she loves them. As Matthias watches her drift off to sleep, Cien reflects on how lonely it must have been for such a kind prince in this awful family. She flashes back to the day he carefully planted a tiny sprout in the dirt just for her. His beaming smile fills her memory, and she vows that from now on, her dad won't be alone anymore. Drifting off to sleep, she thinks about how she never could have imagined this new life before her reincarnation. The scene shifts to the massive, ornate training hall of the Mirmad mansion. Cien watches in disbelief as the maids celebrate completing 1,000 squats after a meal, thinking they're absolute monsters. The maids explain that the Duchess monitors all family training as Cien happily skips off into the beautiful garden, promising to be right back. In the sunny garden, she's surprised to see other children are there too. A glimmer of hope appears on her face as she wishes for a cute new friend. She spots two kids, a boy and a girl with blonde hair, who just stare back at her. Undeterred, Cien flashes her most radiant and welcoming smile, but her charm offensive backfires. The kids scowl back with a T-esque, and she realizes they were staring her down. She then overhears their cruel whispers, gossiping that she's even uglier than the rumors said. The insults continue as they blame it on her having the cursed blood of an evil woman. The children coldly gossip that since her mom and their dad are supposed to die, she'll just become an unlucky orphan. Their cruel words don't break her. Instead, her eyes gleam with a new, unshakable determination. The cruel gossip continues, with the other children callously predicting she'll become an unlucky orphan when her parents die. But instead of tears, Cien's gaze hardens with steely resolve. The bullies keep piling on, calling her and her father weak, evil, and unfit for the family. As their insults echo in her mind, Cien stands her ground, refusing to back down. A warm memory of her father's hand on her head surfaces, calling her, "My daughter." She flashes back to his gentle concern when a bee stung her hand, a simple moment of pure love. Remembering how her pain pained him, her tiny hand clenches into a fist, fueled by righteous anger. Cien steps forward, her voice surprisingly firm as she directly confronts the blonde-haired boy who insulted her. The other kids just laugh it off, mocking her cursed bloodline, but Cien's eyes narrow on her real target. The bullies expect tears, but Cien unleashes her secret weapon, shouting, "Did you just call my grandmother a villainess?" Panic erupts as the children scream in terror, realizing she just twisted their words into an insult against the terrifying Duchess. A furious roar echoes from the mansion. "What did you say?" The cavalry has arrived. Xian's loyal, muscle-bound maids storm out of the mansion, ready for a fight. Putting on the performance of a lifetime, Xian tearfully tattles to the maids while the boy frantically denies calling the Duchess a fool. The maid turns his denial against him, and Xian joins in, expertly fanning the flames of their confusion and fear. She turns on the waterworks, wailing about how hurt her grandma, the Duchess, would be to hear such a terrible word. With a final, dramatic warning, she gives the panicked boy a cunning side-eye, who now realizes he's been played by a master. A maid orders the boy to quiet down, but he defiantly refuses, raising a fist. Xian squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for a hit that she knows will seal his fate. Just as he swings, a powerful hand grabs his wrist, stopping the attack mid-air. The maid shields her, asking if she's all right, and Xian sweetly thanks her for the perfectly timed rescue. Internally, she scoffs at the boy's cowardly move, thinking how ugly it is to hit someone smaller than you. Playing innocent, she asks the maid if her grandmother might hear about this, and the maid's clenching fist says it all. The maids whisper about how brave Xian is, but worry how such awful words might affect her. Xian continues her act, pretending to be devastated for her grandmother's sake. With a glint in her eye, she secretly activates a skill, spreading rumors ahead. As the maids rush off to do her bidding, Xian calculates that the Duchess will hear the news within 5 minutes. With a devilish smile, she thinks about the punishment awaiting the bullies, deciding they are fools for messing with her. She walks away satisfied, knowing the kids are too scared to talk now, protecting her dad from their nasty words. Her mission accomplished, she cheerfully decides to shake it off and head to class. The scene shifts to the stately and impressive mansion annex. A mysterious boy with a black mask introduces himself as Leonhardt, revealing he's now in class with Matthias's infamous daughter. From behind a tree, Leonhardt observes Xian, finding her to be an interesting person. He watches her humming at a desk, musing on her connection to Duke Matthias and the grim fate that supposedly awaits her. A text box next to the masked boy labels him Matthias Mirmod. A powerful, shadowed figure is described as the strongest, most beautiful, and most cruel member of the Mirmod family. The masked boy gets Xian's attention by calling her Chestnut and asking for her real name. Sitting in the library, she corrects him, and he confirms her identity is Xian Mirmod. He finds it odd that she isn't curious about his mask, unlike any other kid would be. He assumes she must have been raised in a strict environment where asking questions was forbidden. As Xian yawns, he interprets it not as boredom, but as a sign that she's used to hiding her true feelings. He feels a sense of kinship, believing he can understand what it's like to live in someone else's shadow. His inner monologue reveals his name is actually Leonhardt Mirmod, and he realizes Xian must have fought to survive near the ruthless Matthias. He sees her as small and weak, but quickly dismisses the thought, sensing there's more to her than meets the eye. Leonhardt reflects that in the entire history of the Mirmod family, there's never been anyone like her father, Lord Matthias. Xian suddenly agrees with his thought aloud, asking how he knew, which piques his interest. He recalls the look in his own eyes when he thinks about his abusers, recognizing a similar fire in Xian's father. A close-up reveals his intense blue eyes behind the mask as he ponders their shared experience. As sunlight streams through the window, he thinks to himself, exactly. In a moment of silent understanding, they both share the same unspoken vow: they will not die, they will live. The masked boy's eye widens as the reflection of a tiny, innocent Xian appears in his pupil. In his mind's eye, she's a perfect little lady, sitting politely with a book in her lap. He smiles, affirming their shared desire to live, and finally saying her name, Xian Mirmod. Xian gives him major side-eye, wondering why this weirdo is suddenly staring and laughing to himself. Outside the grand mansion, she recalls trying to fix her hair for training when he interrupted and ruined everything. Still, she reflects on the fact that her father, Grand Prince Matthias, is truly one of a kind in their family's history. A small bird lands gently on a finger as she realizes her dad's kindness is completely unprecedented in this cruel family. She remembers his gentle nature, realizing that even the other kids know she and her father are marked for death. The thought hits her like a physical blow, and she whispers to herself how much it truly hurts. Her sudden distress doesn't go unnoticed as the masked boy leans in, asking if she's all right. A grim vision flashes in her mind of her father, wounded and alone, and she feels the depth of his loneliness. Holding her father's hand, Xian makes a solemn vow. She knows the original story, and she will protect him. She clenches her fist so hard it bleeds, leaving the masked boy to watch in stunned silence. Leonhardt assumes her intense reaction is because he reminded her of a painful memory, completely misreading the situation. Just then, two men arrive, a stern-looking training supervisor and a portly discipline officer. Standing before a chalkboard, the two instructors promise to do their best. Xian proudly introduces herself, making sure to emphasize her father's full title, Grand Prince Matthias. She politely asks for their names, but the discipline officer simply offers an apology. The supervisor explains they aren't allowed to share personal details, leaving Xian to face two anonymous teachers. A wave of panic hits her, as she suddenly worries about the academic standards for children in this world. She feels a rush of relief seeing a cute book about multiplication tables, thinking it'll be as easy as her past life. But her hopes are dashed when a dense tome on advanced philosophy and geometry is slammed onto the desk. She's utterly bewildered, having no clue what she's expected to learn from such a complex book. Her eyes wide with shock, she wonders what level of genius a normal kid is supposed to be here. She reminds herself that she's on her second life, which should give her an edge. A brief transitional image shows the hem of her dress, but she knows showing off her adult knowledge could backfire spectacularly, so she has to tread very carefully. She decides to play it safe, planning to just go with the flow and maybe slack off a little. The training supervisor, completely charmed by her cuteness, blushes as he suggests they start with a simple picture book. Xian happily agrees, but is internally baffled when he suggests a book for toddlers, thinking this has to be a joke. The discipline officer immediately shuts it down, scoffing that a daughter of the Mirmod family is above reading picture books. The two tutors begin to argue, with one defending her newcomer status, while the other insists on upholding the family's rigorous standards. Sin and Leonhardt exchange a look as their teacher's argument escalates. The discipline officer gets in the last word, practically manhandling the supervisor. Seizing the opportunity, Xian puts on her most adorable face and innocently asks what she should do now. Her cuteness overload short-circuits the supervisor's brain. He just wants to give her the bunny book. The discipline officer slams the heavy textbook down in front of her, startling her with a shout of her name. He condescendingly declares that picture books are for children under 2 years old. He callously insults her supposed zero education from the countryside, saying she should at least know basic etiquette. With a sharp thud, Xian slams her small hand firmly on top of the intimidating book. With a look of pure determination, she announces that she will read it, no matter how difficult it is. The scene transitions from the grand mansion to the pages of an open book. The discipline officer internally scoffs, annoyed that he's stuck teaching the children of a fallen heir and a masked adoptee. He fumes, thinking a great scholar like himself shouldn't be wasted on babysitting. His inner monologue reveals his cruel plan. He gave her the advanced book to crush her spirit from the very start. He orders her to read and summarize the first chapter, then sneers at Leonhardt that he's next on his list. As Xian begins to write, he silently judges her, criticizing her unrefined posture and grip on the pen. Checking his pocket watch, he smugly anticipates that she'll break down in tears any second. Just as the discipline officer smugly checks his watch, a small hand shoots up, and he asks if she has a question. Xian cheerfully announces that she's already finished the assignment. The discipline officer takes her paper, internally sneering as he prepares to mock her ridiculous answer. But one glance at the page sends his brain into a full-on system crash. What? The training supervisor grabs the paper from him and is equally stunned, shouting, "Oh my god!" Xian asks why they're overreacting, but the two tutors can only stammer her name in terrified awe. Her perfect little poker face betrays a single drop of sweat she might have overdone it. The supervisor suddenly lifts her into the air, overcome with joy, and declaring that Lady Scene is a genius. Xian internally panics, realizing this is not good. She probably should have just played dumb. The discipline officer, now a fawning admirer, vows to bring her an even more difficult book tomorrow, much to Xian's annoyance. Suddenly, Leonhardt lifts her up from behind, and she timidly asks what he's doing. He gives a small, knowing smile from behind his mask. Leonhardt compliments her incredible talent, acknowledging that she's a true prodigy. Xian can only manage a very nervous laugh in response. The scene shifts to the imposing mansion under a blood-red sky, hinting at dark dealings within. From a high balcony, her father, Matthias, watches the proceedings, derisively referring to Xian as a, quote, honey jar wrapped in a rag. The Duchess coolly asks Matthias if Xian truly likes her best, but he insists there's been a misunderstanding. An attendant nervously tries to backtrack, admitting the phrasing might be a little off. He clarifies that Xian did, however, clearly support the Duchess, reporting the news to Matthias and the Duchess in a grand study. An attendant flinches as the Duchess lets out a gleeful laugh, amused that the little honey jar was worried about her. The Duchess remarks on Xian's remarkable performance, and Matthias looks on with cold pride, thinking it's just as he expected from his daughter. Meanwhile, the tutors are still having a complete meltdown over Xian's genius-level intellect. The Duchess decides Xian's performance warrants a small reward for her efforts. With a wicked grin, she gives an order to prepare the reward immediately. The attendant is horrified, realizing the Duchess is about to give that to a mere child. Matthias advises her to keep the reward a secret, while privately thinking that finding Xian's enemies is far more important. His thoughts drift to an image of a sweet, innocent Xian, whom he sees as delicate and fragile. He continues to think of her as a gentle soul who could be easily hurt by the world. The attendant, however, knows the truth. This kid isn't fragile. She's a tiny, terrifying boss who'd glare down anyone who crossed her. The Duchess informs Matthias that the Senate is moving to nominate him for Duke, calling him a fool for not knowing. The promotion is presented as a double-edged sword, a precarious balance of power and peril. Matthias smirks, realizing this is a political attack designed to eliminate him, and vows to counter it. He politely takes his leave from the Duchess, stating he needs to head back, but his cold demeanor melts away as he blushes, admitting he needs to see his daughter, Xian. However, his plan is immediately shot down, with a firm no. Two formidable maids seize him, declaring that Xian is being taken to the northern spire, leaving him terrified. Xian, also being escorted, feels less like she's with loyal servants, and more like she's being dragged off to prison. She sees Leonhardt being held by a guard, and is surprised he isn't scared, chalking it up to his villain family roots. Leonhardt boldly argues that there's no rule forcing them to go to the spire right after class. A maid coldly informs him that the order comes directly from Xian's father, Lord Matthias, leaving Xian to wonder about the sudden formality. She scoffs, thinking no one respects her kind father anyway, as a vision of a wilted rose appears before a devastated Leonhardt. As Xian is led away, Leonhardt calls out, asking if she's receiving a gift. She turns back and bluntly tells him she doesn't want it. He watches her go ominously, stating that accepting the gift is the only way for her to live. Xian's eyes sparkle with anticipation, instantly curious about what this mysterious gift could be. She holds out her hands, expectantly wondering what is about to appear. A beautiful silver necklace with an intricate fairy pendant materializes in her palms. Her eyes widen in shock. She knows this artifact. It's the legendary Healing Fairies necklace. The necklace is revealed to be a powerful medium used to summon ancient, powerful fairies. Leonhardt explains that even if she fails to summon a fairy, the necklace has other uses. Xian looks at the necklace, thinking that while it may seem common, it's a useful item if handled correctly. But she can't trust favors with strings attached, remembering that her dad is the only one who helps her unconditionally. Clutching the silver chain, she looks up at Leonhardt and asks why he's giving this to her. The masked boy is momentarily taken aback by her direct question. He looks down, a faint blush creeping up his cheeks as he hesitates to answer. A small, wry smile appears on his face as he admits he thought it would be boring if she just died tomorrow. Xian realizes the gravity of her situation. If she's already a target. This family is even more dangerous than she thought. In a brief, comical aside, a very buff maid flexes menacingly in the background. Xian brightly asks Leonhardt to put the necklace on for her, but he's stunned, asking if it's okay for him to touch her. With stars in her eyes, she gives him an enthusiastic, "Yes, of course." He recoils slightly, warning her that he might accidentally curse her. Instead, he orders a nearby maid to put the necklace on her, and Xian can only watch in confusion. With a soft click, the maid fastens the delicate silver chain around Xian's neck. As the fairy pendant glows with a faint light, Xian calculates that its healing power just boosted her survival odds by one. He really is a good guy. She beams at him, but he just looks away, mumbling that it was nothing special. Now that they're friends, Xian sparkles with excitement and asks for his name, catching him completely off guard. The word friends makes him pause as he wonders who the decent people in his family even are, recalling someone named Cecil. He remembers Cecil was a wanted criminal who seemed nice, then quietly introduces himself. Leonhardt. A quick shot of her little black boots precedes Xian's adorably shocked reaction. She confirms his name, and from a distance he shyly answers yes. A vision of a tall, imposing man appears, the infamous villain he's destined to become. Young Leonhardt just looks down, still blushing from her attention. He thinks back on the idea of friends and the criminal named Cecil before finally stating his name again, Leonhardt. Cian repeats his name, Leonhardt, you said, and he quietly confirms. A menacing silhouette appears as Cian's mind races. If his name is Leonhardt, then he must be that guy. Wah! She has a full-on chibi meltdown, but despite the shock, she thinks it's a really cool name. Leonhardt is stunned, admitting no one's ever called his name cool before, and Cian internally notes that the little mad dog is blushing. She muses that he looks less like a villain and more like a puppy who just got praised. Cian wonders aloud why he becomes a villain when he's so cute, and Leonhardt freezes, asking, "Me, cute?" He repeats the question in disbelief, and Cian immediately panics, thinking she's made a huge mistake. Leonhardt looks utterly floored, confessing that until now, he's only ever been called pitiful. Cian smiles sweetly, realizing what a harsh life he must have lived to end up as a mad dog. Seeing how innocent he is, she realizes this little villain will be easy to win over and happily confirms their new friendship, already plotting to get him on her side. Blushing with excitement, Leonhardt timidly asks if she wants to have tea and snacks, and Cian instantly agrees. But just as she's about to go with him, a hand suddenly grabs her from behind. Her father, Matthias, swoops in and lifts her into a hug, announcing his arrival as she cheers, "Daddy!" Cian snuggles into his arms and proudly announces that she made a friend named Leonhardt. She then notices the maids trembling in terror and comically wonders if they're just low on protein. Matthias's expression turns terrifyingly dark as he repeats the words Leonhardt and friend. Leonhardt flinches under his cold, possessive gaze. With a look that could kill, Matthias glares at the boy and gives him a chilling order. "Take good care of her, all right?" Petrified, Leonhardt can only stammer out a terrified yes. This scene ends on a dramatic, stylized title card. Later, Cian sits alone at a table, lost in thought as she reviews the story she knows. She recalls the novel's plot. A saint falls for the crown prince, but their love is constantly threatened. The source of all their problems was the villainous Mirmad family and their bloody internal war for succession. She jots down a note about the bloodline strife and its three main villains, including the adopted daughter, Delphia. The other two were Selford, a senator's son, and, the most dangerous of all, a dark figure radiating immense power. She remembers the tragic outcome. A man named Axel wins the strife, becomes the iron-blooded duke, and plunges the empire into hell. Cian steals her resolve, knowing she must become strong enough to face him by recruiting allies, starting with her new friend Leonhardt. Cian maps out her political strategy, identifying the Duchess, Headmaster, and Senate Chairman as key players while a buff maid works out in the background. She decides to gather more intel on the Senate Chairman, but immediately concludes the Headmaster hates her because of his subordinate. With her sharp intuition, she realizes a trap is probably already being set for her. She lands softly, realizing her small size is a major logistical problem for her grand plans. With newfound resolve, she declares her next move. She's going to see her dad. The scene shifts to a massive, imposing tower that radiates an aura of dark power. Elsewhere, a man in a wizard's hat finishes giving a garbled report to Matthias, who acknowledges it with a simple, "I see." Surrounded by bloody roses, Matthias reveals his plan to target the Senate, having already recruited the Empire's wizards. With a chilling smile, he vows to eliminate the flies, threatening Cian, but admits there could be complications. His cold gaze narrows as he gives a single, sharp command to the man before him. "Take off your hat." The man nervously asks what's wrong, only to let out a terrified scream in the next instant. Matthias's sinister mood vanishes as he beams, randomly announcing it would be nice to plant some potatoes. He cheerfully asks about the cost of a garden, and his subordinate panics, realizing it's a new secret code. Matthias plays dumb about city prices, leaving the man utterly confused by the bizarre coded message. Suddenly, Cian bursts into the room, looking absolutely outraged. She furiously lectures the man on the price of potatoes, calling him a swindler for overcharging her dad. The subordinate stammers in confusion, while Matthias looks on, amused by his daughter's misunderstanding. Matthias puts on his best puppy dog eyes, telling Cian she shouldn't be so quick to doubt people. Cian hops onto the desk, passionately complaining to her dad about all the bad people in the world. Pointing an accusing finger, she banishes the swindler from her father's sight forever, while Matthias tries to smooth things over. She turns to her dad, demanding he listen to her plan for dealing with bad guys, and he sweetly agrees. She then gives him a masterclass in intimidation, starting with a fierce, eye-squinting glare. For the grand finale, she makes a terrifying face and lets out a threatening, "Katu!" With her arms crossed, she proudly declares her method foolproof, leaving her father momentarily speechless. Matthias looks utterly heartbroken, tearing up as he asks where his sweet daughter learned such a thing. Cien is confused for a second before realizing, oops, her gangster impression scared her dad. She immediately comforts him with a hug, as he gently tells her he doesn't like seeing her act that way. Hiding in his arms, Cien concludes that her weird, violent family is definitely the problem here. Matthias's expression darkens with murderous rage, thinking this family has corrupted his precious daughter and vowing to clean everything up. Cien innocently asks what he means by cleaning, but he quickly changes the subject. He instantly switches to a dazzling smile, suggesting they go make some strawberry syrup together. Cien happily agrees, then adorably scolds him for getting distracted while she's talking. He rests his head in her lap as she gently pats him, the doting father act back in full force. But beneath the surface, both father and daughter are secretly plotting a way to make the family submit to their will. Later, Cien sits alone reading, frustrated that the library books have been completely useless for her plans. As she reads, she's suddenly startled by something just out of frame. A condescending teacher approaches, smugly thinking she can't possibly understand the book she's reading, which only fuels Cien's irritation. Startled by his sudden appearance, she loses her balance and the book slips from her grasp. Whump! She tumbles to the floor in a comical mess of scattered papers. The teacher looks down on her with disdain, telling her to act more gracefully. Cien fumes, a giant angry bump popping up on her head as she seethes about how mean he is. Venting to Leonhard in the garden, she accuses the teacher of hating her and plotting with the academy's director. Leonhard's tone turns grave as he reveals a terrifying truth. No child targeted by the director has ever survived. Cien's eyes widen, trying to grasp the deadly meaning behind his words. Leonhard clenches his fist, clearly worried about the danger she's in. He explains the director's signature move, a phantom maze illusion that drives his victims to death by mental collapse. He warns her that, as Lord Matthias's daughter, she is the #1 target for all of her father's enemies. He apologizes for scaring her, but Cien just gives him a brilliant smile, thanking him for the crucial warning. The scene transitions to the spire at night, standing silent and beautiful under the starry sky. An unconscious man lies on the floor, while two masked figures report that Lord Matthias has left to take the succession trial. Two masked intruders sneak through a grand hall, one dismissing the rumors of unusual maids as nothing to worry about. The purple-haired intruder spots their targets, two ridiculously buff maids, realizing the rumors might be an understatement. He unleashes a special sleep gas, boasting that it's powerful enough to knock out an elephant in 1 second. But his partner is horrified to see the gas has no effect, realizing with terror that these aren't maids, they're beasts. A new masked warrior with long white hair appears, introducing her squad as the Tempest Warriors, who specialize in combat. A maid unleashes a devastating punch with a mighty YAH, sending an intruder flying. The fight ends quickly, with one maid complaining the intruders are skinnier than dried anchovies, as their unconscious bodies litter the floor. From a sunny room, a small voice asks what all the commotion is about. It's Cien, who innocently asks her maids, ladies, while clutching her bunny plush. Cien hums happily while observing a tied-up, crying intruder, thinking this looks less like a tea party and more like an assassin's kit. In a chibi thought bubble, Cien wonders if it's okay for her maids to beat people up so brutally, even as they believe she's just showing concern for them. With a sigh, Cien orders them to untie the intruders' mouths so she can hear them out, and her maids eagerly comply. The intruders immediately start screaming that it's unfair, claiming the maids attacked them without provocation when they just came to see Cien. They flop around pathetically, insisting they only wanted an autograph before leaving, while Cien imagines them as fish being caught by a bear. One of the battle maids tries to explain, but Cien cuts her off, stating she already knows they were sent to kill her by the director. The two captured assassins are left utterly speechless by her accurate deduction. The scene shifts to a fancy letter addressed to Cien Mirmod, noting that she seems to be adjusting well to her new family. As Cian reads the letter, it mentions a thorough review has been conducted by the Academy. The letter announces a small test under the director's supervision, while in the background, her maids are getting in some boxing practice. The letter politely signs off, hoping she will consider this positively, while she continues to read with a serious expression. The head maid, now decked out in boxing gloves and a tracksuit, sternly calls for her ladies. Cian is meticulously dressed and accessorized by her maids, preparing for the challenge ahead. All dressed up with her hair in buns, Cian looks on with quiet determination. The head maid hands her a small bunny pouch, telling her the requested item is inside. Cian holds up her adorable secret weapon, declaring that she's ready for anything. Her maids ask if she's sure about going alone, but Cian insists it's something she must handle herself. With a cheerful smile, she announces she's ready to walk into the tiger's den. Meanwhile, the two captured intruders are left tied up and dangling from a window, with a bird nesting on one of their heads. The scene transitions to an imposing mansion under the quiet night sky. Cian arrives at a brightly lit doorway, cheerfully announcing hello to the two men waiting inside. She immediately identifies the smug, gray-haired headmaster who mockingly welcomes her and asks if she said goodbye to her exiled father. Cian snaps back furiously, defending her dad and calling the headmaster a flounder-faced jerk. He casually dismisses her anger and gets straight to the point, asking if she's been told about the test. He announces the Phantom Maze test is starting now, and all she has to do is escape, just as Leonhardt warned. The headmaster holds up a beautiful, shimmering crystal, condescendingly telling her this should be no problem for her father's daughter. He explains that she has no real choice in the matter, and Cian silently steels herself, knowing she has to do this. Cian agrees to take the test, but defiantly tells him she won't play by his rules as he drops her into the maze's entrance. The headmaster smirks, thinking Cian Mirmod is just another foolish child walking willingly into the jaws of death. He coldly tells her that in their family, the weak are devoured, expecting her to be terrified. But instead of cowering, Cian looks up with a brilliant, challenging fire in her eyes, retorting that you never know until you try. Flounder-faced man! The headmaster is completely stunned, shocked that she's actually smiling in this terrifying situation. An explanation reveals the Phantom Maze is a notoriously malicious illusion spell. The maze is designed to dredge up a person's most painful memories, a mental trial that even adults can't endure. Knowing its true purpose makes it even more sinister. This maze is the headmaster's favorite tool for eliminating his targets. A brilliant flash of light signals the beginning of the trial. Cian finds herself inside the Phantom Maze, clutching her bunny pouch and noting the atmosphere is much darker than she'd anticipated. Deciding there's nothing else to do, she bravely begins to walk forward. As she ventures deeper, she notices the path is narrowing, making it hard to even walk straight. Suddenly, she spots a light in the distance and wonders if she's already found the exit. But the world turns blood red, and a chilling voice calls her an idiot, as she realizes in horror that this test isn't going to be so easy. Inside the maze, a hateful voice echoes around Cian, calling her a useless nuisance. She trembles, recognizing the voice with dawning horror it's from her previous life. Memories of her past life flood her mind, showing her parents' constant, bitter fights where they both blamed her for their problems. She remembers being 8 years old, hiding in a corner day after day, hungry and thirsty while they screamed. Desperate, she decides to sneak out for a quick drink of water. She quietly pours herself a cup, trying not to be noticed. As she holds the cup, she overhears her father's chilling words. They're getting a divorce, and he's leaving her with her mother. Her mother furiously refuses, calling her a creepy child, while her father callously suggests sending her to an orphanage. They scream at each other, tossing her back and forth like an unwanted object, while she stands silently between them. The heartbreaking truth sinks in. She's being abandoned for being useless and creepy. A final, furious shout to do whatever they want with her makes her jump, sloshing the water in her cup. Crash! The cup slips from her hands and shatters on the floor, leaving her frozen in shock. Her parents transform into terrifying, shadowy figures, looming over her with pure menace. They berate her for breaking the expensive cup, accusing her of just trying to make a scene. The illusion forces her to relive every contemptuous glare and word as cold as ice. Her mother grabs her, hissing about how she always does the most horrible things, as young Cian can only stammer out apologies. Her father leans in, sneering at her inability to even speak properly. Her mother grabs her face, threatening to kill her if she continues to be a bother. and Xian can only whimper an apology. But calling her mom only enrages the woman more, who clenches her fist with terrifying fury. Pointing a finger in her face, her mother calls her a useless idiot as Xian flinches away, utterly broken. Ugh. As she stumbles back, she steps on the broken shards, her foot slicing open. She collapses in agony among the glass, crying out that it hurts so much. Bleeding and terrified, she continues to apologize over and over again. Her father looks on without an ounce of pity, ordering her to stop crying and clean up the glass because it's the least she can do. Holding up her bleeding hand, she pleads that she's hurt, but he shows no mercy. He roars at her, telling her to never call him Dad again. His final crushing blow. No one as useless as her could ever be his child, leaving her to sob alone in the dark. The illusion overwhelms Xian, and she collapses to her knees, begging for the love her past life's parents never gave her. Watching through the crystal, the headmaster smirks, gloating that the bold little girl has been reduced to nothing. He tells the director it was surprisingly simple, calling it a bore after all the worry about that demon's daughter. The director smugly agrees, thinking the same thing, but then his eyes fly open in complete and utter shock. He stares in disbelief, a bead of sweat running down his face. He stammers out her name, Xian Mirmod, completely baffled. As a single tear rolls down her cheek in the illusion, he realizes something impossible is happening. She's lifting her head again, her eyes filled not with despair but with fierce defiance. The beautiful winged pendant around her neck begins to glow with a warm, protective light. With a final flash of light, the voice from the necklace shatters the illusion, and Xian finds herself standing in a place of pure golden light. She clutches the warm necklace, a wave of comfort washing over her, feeling like everything will be okay. But with tears still in her eyes, she grits her teeth, knowing this is no time to get sentimental. She holds her bunny pouch tight, her secret weapon, and a reminder of what she's fighting for. A cherished memory surfaces. Matthias, beaming with pride as he presents her with a handmade bunny bag. He then playfully asks if she isn't a bunny, before declaring she's the cutest little bunny ever. "Aw, Dad." Clutching the pouch, she remembers running through a field of flowers, thinking her only wish was to finally have a happy family. She recalls him tucking her in, promising she's lovely no matter what she does. His warm, kind voice echoes in her mind, a comforting anchor in the storm. She thinks of the unconditional love she's finally found, as he wishes her nothing but health and happiness. Fueled by these memories, she runs forward with renewed purpose, vowing to protect her dad and survive to find happiness. The headmaster and director are in a full-blown panic, realizing Xian is about to escape the maze, and the director snaps at him to shut up. The director is sweating bullets, realizing that if the illusion spell breaks, he's in some serious trouble. Inside a grand library, the director and the headmaster stand before a silent Xian, who looks down at the floor. The director glares at her, thinking he can't let this brat ruin his life, and vows to make Xian Mirmod sleep forever. But Xian's spirit is unbreakable. She's resolved to protect her dad because she knows he truly loves her. She remembers her father, Matthias, holding her tight and promising he'll take care of everything. His words echo that all she needs to do is be happy, as the illusion of the library shatters around her. Standing strong amidst the breaking maze, Xian declares her one dream is to live happily with her dad. The director reels in shock as Xian holds up a brilliant multicolored gem and declares, "Now it's Grandpa's turn." Wah! She unleashes a power called Reflection, blasting the director with a blinding light that sends him flying. He crashes to the floor, while the mustached headmaster watches, completely stunned by the turn of events. Xian calmly walks away, holding the gem and cheekily noting that while a strong person might escape the maze, a weak one, well, you get the idea. She then turns to the trembling headmaster, donning a comical blindfold and wielding a toy mallet as she greets her teacher. The headmaster is sweating bullets, furiously demanding to know what she did to the director, and calling her an exile's daughter. With a perfect deadpan expression, Xian innocently shrugs and asks, "What did I do?" He explodes, accusing her of threatening the director and not taking the test, warning her she won't get away with it. Unimpressed, Xian crosses her arms and condescendingly asks if he really can't figure out what's happening. She then lands the final blow to his ego. "Are you stupid?" The headmaster is left speechless. Reaching into her bunny pouch, she pulls out her secret weapon and asks if he wants to join the director. She reveals an elegant hand mirror, explaining that the low-grade artifact can reflect any spell she just experienced, like, say, a certain phantom maze. Her smile is pure, terrifying sunshine as she holds up the mirror, ready to give him a taste of his own medicine. She points out that, while it's usually useless, in this situation, it's a game changer, and the headmaster begins to panic. He immediately drops to the ground and begs for his life. Screaming that he was just following orders from the director, Cien feigns disappointment, calling his cowardice sad, and he desperately agrees with her. He clasps his hands, pleading for forgiveness, while Cien considers his pathetic request. Her answer? A cheerful, nope. She activates the mirror, thinking that spineless people like him are quick to switch sides. With both men now unconscious on the floor, Cien looks down at her handiwork and dismisses them as fools. A chilling thought reveals they're now trapped in their own nightmares, and since evil people have horrifying minds, they won't be waking up anytime soon. She looks down at the beautiful winged pendant resting on her chest, which softly glows. Realizing its light is what saved her, she clutches the necklace and gives a heartfelt thank you to her little fairy. Crash! Suddenly, the wall behind her explodes inward as a figure bursts into the room, and she turns in confusion. A man with dark hair and furious, glowing red eyes glares into the room, radiating pure rage. Cien's eyes widen in utter shock as she recognizes the intruder and stammers, "D-Dad?" It's Matthias, and tears are streaming down his face as he cries out her name. Tears well up in Cien's eyes, stunned and overwhelmed to see him there. She runs and leaps into his arms, yelling for her dad, as all her tension finally melts away in his embrace. He holds her protectively, his eyes filled with cold fury as he tells her they're going back to the mansion. He silently vows to make sure the people who hurt her will have their hearts burst so they can never rise again. This dad is not playing around. Carrying his daughter, he steps past the bodies of his enemies and leaves the scene of his righteous fury. Back home, her dad gently scolds her for doing something so dangerous, but Cien tries to explain that she was forced to take the test. With tears in his eyes, he tells her he was terrified something would happen to her, wondering how he could possibly live alone. He asks for an explanation, but Cien panics, realizing she can't just admit she planned the whole thing, and Uno reversed the maze back on her captors. Time for Plan B, weaponized cuteness. She says it was nothing, and claims that just thinking about him broke the illusion, pulling off a smooth escape. Blushing, her dad falls for it completely, softly saying, "I see, my girl." He hugs her, relieved that she's safe, and she happily promises to be more careful. To calm her nerves, he suggests they have some cake, and Cien enthusiastically agrees. A beautifully prepared strawberry roll cake is served, a sweet reward after a bitter trial. As they enjoy the treat, her dad's kindness triggers a traumatic flashback to her past life's father screaming at her to never call him dad. Cien flinches, the cruel words of the past still haunting her. But her new dad gently reassures her, saying it's okay if she's useless because she's beautiful to him just the way she is. Still seeking reassurance, she asks if he'd still love her even if she was bad and broke expensive cups. She pushes a strawberry on her plate, lost in thought, trying to reconcile the unconditional love she has now with the pain of her past. Her dad blushes, telling her he doesn't care if she's clumsy. If she breaks 100 cups, he'll buy her 1,000 more. Overwhelmed by his unconditional love, Cien's eyes fill with tears. He gently pats her head, and she looks up at him, her heart full. She clutches her dress, trying to hold back the tears, because she doesn't want to make her dad worry. Sniffling, she manages a "yes, dad," wondering when calling someone dad became so emotional for her. Suddenly, she cries out for her dad, and Matthias panics, thinking he said something wrong and asking what's the matter. He gently holds her face, apologizing and admitting he's clumsy because he's never been a dad before. Wiping away a tear, she thinks about how he apologized even though he did nothing wrong. She worries about his pure heart, wondering how someone so kind can survive in this world. She thinks about how much she loves him, more than anyone, and vows never to hurt the best dad in the whole world. The moment of doubt passes, replaced by pure joy, as she laughs, while her father smiles down at her. That night, tucked in bed beside him, she resolves that she can't keep crying. She needs to get stronger. With a determined clench of her fist, she thinks that to find happiness, she has to survive first, and with the director gone, she has time to prepare. She remembers the director was a one-trick pony, but she knows the villains from the Miramod family will be far more dangerous. Her resolve hardens. She'll build her power slowly and stay out of sight, believing that with her dad, she can survive anything. Just then, her dad gently calls her name and she jolts awake, asking if he's still up because of her. With a tear in his eye, he tells her the big news. He's been confirmed as the heir of the family. Wah! The announcement hits her like a ton of bricks, and she sits bolt upright, screaming already. Her mind races as she remembers from the novel that the head of the council is a villain, and she fears they're planning to turn her dad into a puppet. Confused and worried, she wonders why they would suddenly choose her kind-hearted dad as the heir. She asks if he has some hidden power, but he shyly explains the council just thinks he has a noble heart perfect for the duchy. Ugh. As her dad relays the council's praise, Cian's face darkens with rage. Knowing it's all a lie, she grits her teeth, realizing they're obviously plotting to take advantage of her sweet, innocent dad. In her mind, she sees the council head as a puppeteer, pulling the strings on her pure-hearted father. She collapses against her dad in despair, and he asks what's wrong, worried she might be sick. Panicking internally, she knows that once Axel hears this news, they'll be his first target, but she just tells her dad it's nothing. He looks at her with innocent confusion, asking her what's on her mind. A horrifying vision flashes in her mind, her dad being manipulated by the council and then killed by Axel. She knows that once he's named heir, every ambitious member of the Mirmod family will be out for his blood, even if he tries to escape. Clenching her fists, she realizes there's only one path forward. She has to help her dad become a capable duke. She leaps up, filled with fierce determination, and declares that she will protect him and support him all the way to becoming the best duke ever. Her passionate support is apparently so cute that even the universe has to pause and admire it. Moved, her dad kisses her forehead, saying her words give him strength, while secretly acknowledging the tough road ahead. She winks, ready to do whatever it takes to protect him until they're safe. Time for a reality check. She stops him, reminding him of his lessons and declaring, "You have to train." She strikes a fierce pose, instructing him to stand firm with his chin up. Her lesson continues with leg positioning and a terrifyingly intense glare as she gets to the most important part. To his utter shock, she starts shouting a string of censored curses, ordering him to repeat after her. Her dad is absolutely mortified, stammering her name and demanding to know where on earth she learned such horrible words. He frantically asks who taught her, and she feigns innocence, realizing she may have gone too far for her pure-hearted dad. The next morning dawns on the grand estate. Cian sulks at the breakfast table, thinking her dad is a dummy for not understanding that she's worried he's too soft. She tugs her hair in frustration, wondering how she can possibly deal with all their enemies in such a short amount of time. Grr! Suddenly, the two maids behind her start growling at each other in a bizarre display of rivalry. They ask if she's struggling to pick a snack, but Cian mentally screams that her problems are a little bigger than cake right now. The pressure is on as she contemplates her life or death situation with Shakespearean gravity. The next day arrives, bringing a fresh start over the sprawling castle grounds. Relaxing in a chair, Cian learns she's off the hook for lessons due to the mysterious deaths of the headmaster and an officer named Lelmi. But she finds it odd they died so quickly. She briefly wonders if their illusions malfunctioned, but quickly dismisses the petty villains as a maid rushes in with congratulations. The maids announce that not only is Matthias the official heir, but he's also being gifted a new mansion, meaning Cian will get her own room. Cian smiles warmly at her two maids, thanking them and joking that they'll be with her forever. The maids are overjoyed by her words, as Cian secretly vows to build them a strength training gym when she grows up. Beaming, she tells them not to worry about thanking her, feeling ecstatic about her new plan. But her happy expression vanishes, replaced by pure dread as she remembers they're now closer to death than ever before. She recalls that once the ambitious villain Axel hears her dad is the heir, their fate will be sealed. In the original story, Axel was a bloodthirsty monster who purged the entire Mirmod family to seize power. A flashback shows the bloody aftermath of his massacre, where he eliminated anyone standing in his way. She knows with absolute certainty that her father, Matthias Mirmod, is now #1 on Axel's hit list. Panicking, she realizes the final boss battle is coming way too soon and wonders how they can possibly win. But her fear hardens into resolve. Her last gamble worked, so it's time to double down and take another. She leaps to her feet, calling for her maids with a new fire in her eyes. With a determined glint, she declares that her plan starts right now. Meanwhile, a group of noble women gather for an elegant tea party in a sunlit garden. A formidable woman with dark hair sips her tea, clearly the center of attention, the Duchess. The ladies gossip about Axel sending letters from the battlefield, trying to impress the Duchess with his victories, which they find arrogant. Another scoffs that not only is the Duchess unaware a successor has been chosen, but some thief named Molly is holding sacred family relics. The Duchess coolly mentions the headmaster's mysterious death, dismissing it as a simple matter of finding a replacement. The other ladies note her complete lack of interest, realizing she's bored by the topic. The conversation shifts as one woman announces that Count Matthias is the new heir, and the council has approved him. Sensing the Duchess's continued boredom, one of the ladies realizes she needs to change the topic fast. She decides to steer the conversation in a new, more engaging direction. Hoping to spark some interest, she brings up the rumor that Count Matthias has a remarkably clever daughter. At the mention of Cien, the Duchess finally pauses, her attention captured. Two of the ladies sneer, blaming Cien's mother for Matthias's strained relationship with the duchy. A flashback reveals Cien's mother was not only why Matthias left the family, but was also the infamous Demon of the Archipelago incident. The dark history is revealed. Cien's mother, Uella, was caught after a failed demon summoning ritual. Betrayed by informants, Uella was dragged to a temple where she met a gruesome end. In response, a heartbroken and vengeful Matthias was pushed to his breaking point. He hunted down and killed every single person who had betrayed the woman he loved. The slaughter was so brutal it was called the Blood Purge, a topic the ladies realize is too grim for the Duchess. But the Duchess ignores the dark tale, cryptically asking if anyone has seen the honey jar, baffling her guests. Just then, a little blonde girl runs in, hugging a woman and calling her grandma. The Duchess calls her Honey Bun, shocking everyone. The two gossiping nobles are completely flustered by this bizarre and unexpected development. The Duchess looks on coolly, questioning why they're all so surprised by her term of endearment. One of the ladies nervously wonders aloud if the Duchess is actually fond of the child. Trying to recover, she quickly praises Lady Cien as remarkable, hoping to appease the Duchess. As the Duchess seems to ponder her words, the lady thinks she's finally on the right track. The other women quickly pile on, sharing rumors of Cien's intelligence, indomitable spirit, and bravery. The Duchess considers this, stroking her chin and admitting that there is a certain sharpness about the girl. But then she leans back, defensively adding, "Not that I'm particularly fond of the honey bun, mind you." Classic. Her mixed signals leave the other ladies utterly bewildered, wondering if she likes Cien or not. A sudden knock on the door interrupts their awkward tea time. A maid enters the room, drawing the attention of the Duchess. The Duchess sternly reminds the maid she wasn't to be disturbed, and the maid stammers an apology. The maid announces that Lady Cien has requested a private audience, leaving the Duchess completely surprised. Speak of the devil. Cien bursts in with a dazzling smile, shouting that she came to see her grandma. She stands there cheerfully, radiating pure, unfiltered cuteness. Her adorable entrance leaves the gossiping ladies speechless and even surprises the Duchess. With a subtle smirk, the Duchess dismisses her guests, declaring that tea time is over. Now alone, Cien and the Duchess sit across from each other in the grand, silent room, ready for their one-on-one meeting. Cien steels her nerves, realizing that to get the intel she needs, she has to go straight to the top, the Duchess. But just as she's wondering how to break the ice, the Duchess calls her Honey Bun, and Cien snaps to attention with a sharp, "Yes, ma'am." With an unnervingly stern expression, the Duchess gives a simple command. "Sit on my lap right now." Cien is completely baffled by the request, asking with wide-eyed innocence, "Pardon?" ? Quote. A close-up on the Duchess's piercing red eyes shows she is absolutely not kidding. Deciding it's best not to argue, Cien hops onto her lap, thinking she'll just play along for now. As she sits there awkwardly, she can't help but wonder what this is all about. The Duchess looks down at her, lost in thought for a moment. She finally speaks, revealing that a major family event is happening in about 3 months. Cien's mind lights up. A gathering of the whole family is the perfect chance to finally get some answers. She knows this is when all the scary gentlemen who are vying to be the next successor will show up. But the Duchess scoffs, dismissing most of them as small fry, saying there are only 3 real contenders. This is it. Cien realizes she's about to get the intel she's been desperate for, and asks if those are the scary ones. The Duchess confirms, naming Axel and Delphia before cutting herself off, deciding not to mention the third. She calls Axel the most annoying of the bunch, as he's bragging he'll finish a year-long war in a single month. The news hits Cien like a freight train. That means she only has 1 month to secure her family's position. She slumps against the Duchess in despair, completely overwhelmed by the impossible timeline. The Duchess, thinking she's just scared the little girl, feels a pang of guilt, but Cien sees a glimmer of hope. At least Axel isn't back yet. Trying to comfort her, the Duchess pats her head and says her father, Matthias, will handle everything. Cien internally rejects this, knowing that if her kind-hearted dad is in charge, they're heading straight for a massacre ending. Convinced her naive dad can't be trusted, she realizes she needs to fight fire with fire, or in this case, dark magic with holy power. A divine light shines down, symbolizing the sacred power she now seeks. With renewed purpose, she hops off the Duchess's lap, a new plan already forming. She beams, thinking her first order of business is to make the powerful Duchess her ally. But then, a brilliant idea strikes her with a flash of insight. Of course, the perfect teacher to help her gain power is sitting right in front of her. She recalls the Duchess's legendary status as a high-ranking magician with immense influence, realizing she's the key to learning white magic. Her eyes sparkle as she hatches her master plan. Looking up with the sweetest face she can muster, she bats her eyelashes expectantly. She lays it on thick, declaring her grandma is the coolest person in the world and her ultimate role model. The Duchess is visibly taken aback by the sudden, intense flattery. She looks completely flustered, questioning if she really heard the word cool. Cien blushes and asks what she has to do to become as awesome as her, secretly worrying she's misread the room. Throwing caution to the wind, she makes her plea, shouting that she wants to learn everything and be strong just like her grandma. An awkward silence hangs in the air as the Duchess processes the passionate outburst. The mood suddenly turns ice cold, and Cien internally panics, thinking she's made a huge mistake. But a slow, cunning smile spreads across the Duchess's face as she says, "I'll have to teach you myself," leaving Cien stunned. The Duchess explains it's for the best, since the academy is in chaos. Cien is a little intimidated, but figures it's a win. Overjoyed, she thanks her and eagerly asks when they can start their training. A dangerous glint appears in the Duchess's eyes, clearly relishing the opportunity. When she implies they'll start tomorrow, Cien breaks into a cold sweat, realizing she may have just signed up for boot camp from hell. She nervously agrees, reasoning that no matter how tough it gets, it's better than the alternative. The next morning, a boy with dark hair and a mysterious mask waits outside. Cien stands before him, the two of them looking at each other under a bright blue sky. The Duchess watches them, her expression unreadable, as she assesses the situation. The young boy with a mask holds hands with a blonde girl who is Cien, leading her forward. The boy, Leon, proudly introduces Cien to the Duchess, exclaiming, "This is the friend I mentioned in my letter, Grandma." In a quick flashback, Cien remembers asking Leon to train with her, figuring they could both get stronger together as future allies. Cien tries to convince herself she totally wasn't intimidated by the Duchess's fiery passion when she roped him into this. Yeah, right? A stern woman with dark hair declares that she only teaches children who meet her high standards. With a cruel smirk, she eyes her potential students, ready to pass judgment. Cien and the masked boy stand before her, looking small and a bit nervous. "I will conduct a test," the woman announces, her hand crackling with fiery energy. She repeats her declaration, the fiery aura around her growing more intense. As they're led away, Cien steels herself, realizing she doesn't have to hide her true abilities this time. But for Cien, a reincarnator with an adult mind, her grandmother's test was a piece of cake. She breezes through advanced equations, easily solving problems that would stump any normal child. The results are in. Cien throws up a peace sign, celebrating her perfect score. With the written test aced, she is confident she can move on without any issues. The results also show that Leon scored full marks, making them a perfect duo. But their grandmother is unimpressed, coolly stating that this is merely the basics. "So now," she says with a sly grin, holding up the next part of their exam, Cien realizes it's a mana test, the true main event to measure their magical potential. The Duchess unleashes a wave of power, instructing them to feel the mana inside their bodies. Both Cien and Leonhardt close their eyes, concentrating deeply to sense their inner power. The Duchess reaches out, a point of brilliant light touching Leonhardt's forehead to begin the test. Cien recalls that Leonhardt is destined for greatness, wondering just how powerful he truly is as he's enveloped in a massive blue aura. A smile finally breaks through the Duchess's stern facade. "Indeed," she says, clearly impressed. She marvels that his potential is unlike his parents', admitting she can't even measure the full extent of his mana. Cien is puzzled, as the original story never mentioned Leon's parents, adoptive or otherwise. The Duchess tells Leonhardt he could become a remarkable person with training, and Cien beams, proud of her decision to recruit him. But the Duchess's expression darkens as she turns back to Leonhardt with a sharp question. "You're staying at Axel's mansion, aren't you?" she asks, her tone suddenly accusatory. Leonhardt remains silent, his expression unreadable behind his mask. She presses him, questioning why he's there when he could be learning from Axel himself. With a flash of defiance, Leonhardt scoffs and dismissively says, "Axel, or whatever." He turns his head away, clearly unimpressed, leaving Cien to look on in surprise. A confident, almost smug smile plays on Leonhardt's lips. Cien internally panics, thinking he's lost his mind, disrespecting the Duchess. They don't call him the mad dog of Mirman for nothing. She worries that if he keeps this up, the Duchess will start to hate her too. To everyone's surprise, the Duchess calls his defiance a pleasant response. Both kids are flabbergasted, wondering what on earth she liked about his blatant disrespect. But when the Duchess reaches for him, Leonhardt recoils violently, yelling, "Don't touch the mask." He immediately pulls Cien behind him, shielding her from his own grandmother, who seems taken aback by his protective reflex. A dark vision reveals a trembling Leonhardt, his skin covered in a strange, pulsating pattern. Cien looks closer, realizing with concern that the boy is shaking. Despite his rude outburst, she sees him for what he is, a frightened little cat, hissing to protect himself. An image of a fierce, hissing black cat with glowing blue eyes perfectly captures his defensive posture. Cien watches his trembling back with a look of empathy. She gently reaches out and takes his arm, offering a silent gesture of support. Her soft expression seems to calm the tense atmosphere between them. Leonhardt turns to her, his defensiveness melting away slightly as he looks at her. The Duchess cuts the moment short, deciding that's enough from him. "It's your turn," she announces, turning her full attention to Cien, who knows this is her moment of truth. Cien steps forward, bracing herself for the test. A powerful wave of purple energy flows from the Duchess, completely engulfing Cien. The scene flashes to a bright, clear sky seen through lush green leaves. As the magic surrounds her, Cien comes to a shocking realization. She can't feel any mana at all. The two kids look on in disbelief as the entire mansion seems to echo with a collective WHAAAATTT. Plot twist. The genius has zero magic. The Duchess tests Cien's mana, confirming she doesn't feel anything at all. A double hit of bad news for Cien, who panics about being too weak to even produce mana. But Cien insists she can feel something bouncing inside of her, even if it isn't mana. The Duchess looks intrigued, admitting this is the first time she's ever seen anything like it. Cien completely spirals, thinking this must be some kind of cruel penalty for reincarnators, while a tiny ghost version of her soul says goodbye. Leon tries to calm her down. He tells her not to lose hope, explaining he was once in her shoes, but Cien is too busy having a meltdown to hear him. The Duchess pats her head, suggesting she could be an administrator instead, but Cien knows that's not strong enough to stop Axel and prevent the total wipeout ending she fears. Then, a brilliant idea strikes her like a bolt of lightning. "That's it!" she exclaims, turning to her grandma with a new plan and demanding to be taken somewhere immediately. The Duchess looks on, a little surprised, and asks where exactly she wants to go. Cien knows that in this world, mages aren't the only special people, and thanks to her reincarnation, she knows who the real power players are. Her new strategy is simple. If you can't be strong yourself, just surround yourself with strong people. She points the way, declaring their destination is the magnificent Sanoa Temple. She recalls from the novel that the temple's main figure is Saint Melodia, a woman who fills even non-believers with love. Melodia's kindness was so great that she even comforted those who committed evil deeds, inspiring devotion in her followers. With sacred relics and an army of holy knights, she fought against the world's villains. And wouldn't you know it, the biggest villains of all were Cien's own family, the Mirmos. And Melodia's rise to sainthood started right at the Temple of Sanoa. Among her protectors, the strongest of all was the legendary Holy Knight Ted. Cien is fired up, determined to get him on her side, and cleverly tells her grandma she just wants to go pray for a cool new ability. The Duchess considers it, noting the temple is on the outskirts and shouldn't attract much attention. However, she worries Cien could face danger there, and knows her own presence would be seen as a threat by the temple. Cien turns on the ultimate weapon, puppy dog eyes, looking up at her grandmother expectantly. The Duchess melts just a little, deciding to give her honey cake a special gift for the trip. In a cute doodle, Leon and Cien look completely bewildered by the mention of a gift. With a sly grin, the Duchess assures them it's nothing special but will definitely be useful. Cien arrives at the Grand Temple of Sanoa, feeling grateful for her awesome, ability-packed grandmother who made the trip so easy. Her gift turns out to be Leon for emotional support and the two ultra-reliable maid sisters as her personal security detail. With her crew assembled, Cien grins, thinking all she needs to do now is cast the Holy Knight, using her insider knowledge from the novel. She figures a Holy Knight's divine power is the perfect counter to Axel's dark magic. Imagining herself triumphantly stomping on him. Full of purpose, she dashes up the stairs, calling out for the Holy Knight, with her maids following closely behind. But her tiny legs give out almost immediately on the endless staircase, and she panics that she'll be out of breath before she even gets there. Cien squeals with delight as the maids playfully toss her into the air before carrying her up the steps. Thanks to her super maids, she arrives at the temple center in less than a minute, feeling very glad she brought them along. But as the maids start looking around nervously, Cien wonders what's making them so antsy. She's completely shocked when they suddenly tell her it's time for them to leave. The maids frantically explain that as members of the villainous Mirmos family, they're enemies of the sacred temple and can't stay long. The reality of her family's reputation hits Cien, and she trembles a little, realizing she's in enemy territory. But she quickly puffs out her chest, telling her worried maids not to worry because she's a big girl now. Waving a confident goodbye, she promises to be back soon, while her maids tearfully beg her to be safe. The two maids are an absolute wreck, sweating bullets and crying as they watch her go. Alone in the massive, echoing hall, Cien admits to herself that she came in a bit recklessly and has no clue how to actually find Knight Ted. She feels hopelessly small, realizing she can't possibly search every corner of the giant temple. Just then, her eyes land on a group of 3 young acolytes walking nearby. Hope! She bounces over with a cheerful hello, taking the 2 boys completely by surprise. A boy with freckles and dark hair just stares back, wondering what this is all about. One of the boys immediately asks if she's there for offerings and demands she hand them over, making Cien suspect a shakedown. They size her up, calling her an abandoned noble. The freckled boy sneers, calling her a beggar and mocking that she doesn't have any money for them to take anyway. The insult stings, and Cien clenches her fist, thinking of her father's love as she silently insists she wasn't abandoned. She tries to speak up and defend herself, but her body won't move. A flash of past life trauma paralyzes her, and the boys laugh cruelly, thinking she's just stupid for not responding. The acolytes sneer at Cien, with the freckled one calling her a fat pig who was abandoned. Rage boils inside Cien as she clenches her fist, furious they would dare insult her loving father. She finally snaps, puffing out her chest and shouting that she's had enough of their insults. With a defiant glare, she declares she isn't a beggar and asks if they're looking for someone time to flip the script. "Get out of my way!" she screams, shocking the freckle-faced bully with her sudden ferocity. He and the girl acolyte stumble back, completely stunned by her outburst. The world turns into a cartoony nightmare as Cien imagines herself being thrown out of the temple. Wham! Someone yanks her hair hard, but she fights back, vowing to grab them right back. The scuffle ends with Cien and the freckled boy tangled on the floor in a dizzying, blush-filled mess. She lands a satisfying bonk right on his head, leaving him seeing stars. Suddenly, a commanding voice rings out, scolding the young priests for bullying their friends. Cien looks up, her eyes wide with surprise, to see who came to her rescue. A handsome man with striking blonde hair and piercing blue eyes comes into view. It's him, the legendary Holy Knight, with his spotless white armor and a faint scar on his cheek. A spark of recognition ignites in Cien's eyes. She's found her target, declaring Knight Ted will be hers. Knight Ted stands before them, a picture of righteous authority in his gleaming white armor. The scene settles as Ted assesses the situation, with Cien and the 3 young acolytes standing before him. The freckled acolyte, however, doesn't look sorry at all. He's got a smug little smirk on his face. Ted stands over the group as Cien rubs a sore spot on her head from the fight. Ted questions the boy about the maids from before, but the kid fires back, demanding proof and reminding him a Holy Knight's duty is to protect clerics. The boy threatens to tattle to Gabriel, a name that rings a faint bell for Cien, while Ted warns him to watch his behavior. The acolyte points directly at Cien, calling her that, which sends her into a comical rage. Cien fumes, realizing these kids are already drunk on power, knowing their rank as clerics puts them above even the holy knights. She steps up to confront them, but the brats just deny everything and tell her to get lost. Cien smirks, raising her arm to reveal a shimmering bracelet. "Oh really? Do you know what this is?" The boys mock her cheap bracelet, but as it glows, a memory of them calling her a pig flashes before their eyes. The memory crystal projects their bullying for all to see, and the acolyte's faces drain of color. A menacing shadow falls over Cien's face as she grins, her trap perfectly sprung. "It's a memory crystal," she announces cheerfully, adding it was a little protective gift from her grandma. She calls them out as liars, and the bullies can only stammer in shock, caught red-handed. Fed up with their shamelessness, Cien decides to pull out the ultimate trump card. She's calling her grandmother. The acolytes laugh off her threat, scoffing that they aren't scared of some beggar's grandmother. Cien's face transforms into a terrifyingly cute mask of fury as she reveals her grandma is the Duchess Lucella Mirmos, scarier than the boogeyman himself. She playfully taunts them, singing that the dreaded Mirmos is coming to get them, and they absolutely lose it. Poor Knight Ted is left speechless, blushing, and completely bewildered by the chaotic scene. Later, Sane and Ted are having tea, and he awkwardly tells her he won't hold a grudge over the incident. Cien secretly plots her next move, deciding that showing forgiveness will make her seem kind and win Ted's heart. Ted smiles, now curious what could bring a noble lady from the infamous Mirmos family to their temple. It's showtime. Cien thinks to herself that it's finally time to use her insider knowledge from the novel. Just like the original heroine Melodia, she launches her plan, stating she came because she saw a flyer. She presents the flyer, explaining it said a man named Ted was searching for his long-lost family. The moment she mentions Fallode Street, a wave of shock hits Ted. Overcome with emotion, he drops to one knee, promising to reward her for the incredible news. He clutches his chest, completely overwhelmed, and desperately asks what she desires. Cien is taken aback, not expecting such a powerful reaction from the stoic knight. She clasps her hands together, looking up at him with the most innocent face she can muster. She makes her request, her eyes shining with hope. "Please become Cien's knight." Ted is utterly frozen, his mind completely blanked by her bold proposition. Cien waits expectantly, a little confused by his silent, stunned reaction. Panic sets in as her eyes quake. Wait, this isn't right. In the novel, he wasn't protecting anyone yet. Completely flustered, the handsome blonde knight blushes and apologizes to Cien. Cien studies him, wondering if there's a sad story behind his reaction. Ted snaps back to reality, trying to explain that he can't just become her knight on the spot. Not backing down, Cien passionately insists she understands the meaning of loyalty. He bows deeply, overwhelmed by her kindness, and promises he'll never forget this favor. As a token of his gratitude, he offers her a small, elegant pouch, saying it's not much but hopes she'll accept it. Cien's eyes go wide. She instantly recognizes the gift as Melodia's iconic butterfly hairpin from the novel. She recalls that Melodia got this by becoming close to Ted and realizes she might be walking the same path as the original heroine. She's not sure if he'll be her ally, but it's too early to give up hope, especially since she understands the desire to protect one's family. Cien sets up their next meeting for 3 nights from now at Fallode Street, giving him time to find his family. Ted smiles warmly, agreeing to her plan. The day of her father's succession ceremony arrives, and Cien, flanked by her maids, is ready for his glorious moment. A close-up shows her father, Matthias, looking somber and thoughtful. An official formally announces Matthias Mirmos as the new young duke and count. Cien fumes, wondering why the ceremony is so cheap, suspecting it's because they plan to replace him soon anyway. 2 nobles snicker nearby, gossiping that he'll be ousted as soon as Lady Delphia and Lord Axel return. The cruel whispers continue, with others predicting her father won't last and that she, the little kid, will die soon too. Cien glares, realizing they're whispering loudly on purpose and seething at how they're treating her family. Suddenly, the gossiping nobles freeze, their faces twisted in pure terror. Cien thinks her glare scared them, but then sees her maids cracking their knuckles with killer intent. That's why they're terrified. She scolds them, warning that their bad behavior will make her dad cry, which sends the maids into a panic. Cien is completely baffled by their equally embarrassed expressions. The maids awkwardly try to explain that Lord Matthias probably isn't the type to cry. She blushes, realizing these maids might know her tough guy dad better than she does. Fine then, Cien tells them to just write down the names of the offenders for later. With that handled, She joyfully runs to find her father. Matthias's face lights up with a huge smile as he sees her coming. She leaps into his arms to congratulate him, and he lovingly thanks his daughter. He holds her close, revealing he also has something to congratulate her about, piquing her curiosity. A stunning, sprawling white mansion is revealed. Their new home. Wow. Cien gasps in delight, completely mesmerized by the beautiful garden and fountain. Her father leads her inside the grand estate, proudly calling it their pretty house. With a radiant smile, he promises they will be happy together in their new home. Cien looks at his hand holding hers, feeling the warmth of his genuine smile. She makes a silent vow to herself to protect that smile no matter what. Holding his hand, she declares she will definitely protect him in the cruel world of the Mirmos family. Later that night, the scene shifts to a secluded house under a full moon. Two of Matthias's men greet him, and he immediately asks about the spy sent by Delphia. His bald underling reports they've captured the spy and that Delphia herself will likely be on her way soon. Matthias notes their arrival is faster than expected and coldly orders his men to kill or torture the spy as they see fit. But then he adds one critical rule. In front of Cien, they must act kindly, leaving his tough henchmen utterly confused. He clarifies his order. Kindly means acting like an obedient, harmless dog. Matthias also reminds them to be extra careful since Cien will be at the hunting competition tomorrow. He explains his reasoning. Evil actions are bad for a child's education. Then he drops the ultimate threat. Anyone who shows an ugly face to his daughter will be executed. His terrifying henchmen are now sweating and trembling in absolute fear. The next morning, the grand estate is bathed in sunlight. Her two maids shower Cien with compliments, gushing over how cute and great she looks for the competition. Dressed in an adorable dark outfit with her hair in buns, Cien beams, thanking her maids and feeling ready for the day. Cien chuckles as her maids try to explain the excitement of the hunting competition. But she's got another secret reason to be so pumped for today's event. In a flashback, she recalls her terrifyingly cool grandma, giving her a box full of attack artifacts to make up for her lack of magic. She hums a happy tune, feeling fully equipped and ready for anything. Now it's time to show everyone what she's made of at the hunting competition. Her maids mention that some friends are waiting to greet them, and Cien is stunned. Her dad has friends? She immediately starts worrying, wondering if subordinates from an evil family can be trusted not to use her dad. In her imagination, two strange figures call her name, reminding her that people of a feather flock together. She panics a little. What if they're even kinder than her dad? Protecting him is already a full-time job. Fired up, Cien declares that as her dad's aides, she'll just have to protect them too. The life of a breadwinning daughter is never done. As the maids open the grand doors, she braces herself to finally meet her father's mysterious friends. She puts on her brightest, most welcoming smile, ready to make a good impression. Zap, her smile instantly evaporates as she's greeted by a voice. Before her stand two ridiculously buff, bald men in frilly uniforms with pink bows, introducing themselves as Matthias's subordinates, Melee and Mont. They strike a pose, complete with winks and hearts, and announce how much they're looking forward to working with her. Cien is utterly speechless, thinking they're just plain creepy, while her maids ready their fists, whispering, "Destroy!" Just then, her dad arrives with a cheerful smile, apologizing for being late and completely oblivious to the horror on his daughter's face. His smile cracks under pressure as he sees the scene, asking a hesitant, "Dad?" Matthias's silent glare is so intense it sends his two henchmen scrambling away in fear, leaving Cien to stare after them. She cautiously asks her father if those men are really his friends, and he sheepishly confirms they are. But a flash of his dark side appears as he holds her, his eyes glowing red, and Cien realizes her dad's friends are terrified of him for a reason. Melee and Mont look absolutely wrecked after that encounter, clearly having gotten an earful. The scene shifts as a hand waves dismissively. Elsewhere, two of Delphia's men look downtrodden, lamenting being stuck in a remote corner. Meanwhile, the stunning Duchess Delphia Mirmos smirks, having just learned that Matthias was chosen as the family heir. Unbelievable, she fumes, realizing the succession has turned into a three-way war between her, Axel, and now Matthias. Her subordinates try to reassure her that his title is empty and rightfully belongs to her, but she shuts them up with a single, sharp gesture, striking fear into their hearts. She needs to think, pondering what her rival Matthias cherishes most in the world. A nervous aide suggests it's the daughter he just brought home with him. A wicked idea forms as Delphia wonders aloud how devastated Matthias would be if his little girl were to disappear. Licking her lips, she decides that would be a very amusing outcome indeed. Back in the present, a carriage rattles through a sun-dappled forest. Cian sits inside, trying to convince herself not to judge by appearances, even though those men were seriously intimidating. She recalls her scary but kind maids, hoping her dad's friends might be the same. She asks her dad if his friends are nice, and he gives a slightly strained, "Why? Yeah?" He leans in and asks why she's so suspicious, and she bluntly tells him, they look scary. A shadow crosses his face, and his eyes glint with a dangerous light. "That's troubling," he says with a grin. Cian sees his downcast expression and immediately worries she's hurt his feelings about his friends. She puffs out her chest and declares she's not scared at all. If they cause trouble, she'll just use her full gear to handle them. Her dad blushes, touched by her fierce loyalty, and promises to have a word with his men. He insists they're good people, but Cian sighs, knowing her dad is a bit too trusting for his own good. She gives up trying to convince him, realizing it's a lost cause. A glint of determination shines in her eyes. She'll just have to stay on guard. In the other carriage, the henchmen are having a crisis of confidence, with one complaining the ribbon he wore made him look too fierce. He pulls out a sparkly starlight brooch, hoping it will make a better impression on Cian. They ride on, determined to do well at the hunting competition and win her over. Their destination is finally revealed, a grand, sprawling villa in the Lechern forest. Upon arrival, Matthias tells Cian and the maids to get some rest while he handles preparations for the competition. Cian cheerfully waves goodbye to her dad as he heads off. From a beautiful garden, a voice asks Lady Cian if she would like a shower prepared. Her two brawny maids offer her cake, but a tiny Cian nervously insists she's okay. Cian shakes her head, steeling herself as she thinks about all the things she needs to figure out. Her mission is twofold: uncover the identities of her dad's aides and finalize her plan to meet Sir Ted, the Holy Knight. Plus, with the hunting competition today, she knows anything could happen, and her muscle maids are on high alert behind her. She decides to check the artifacts her grandma gave her. Examining her reflection in an ornate mirror, she mentally lists her OP gear: an attack gourd, defensive earrings, and a human disintegration necklace. Grandma doesn't mess around. All geared up, she glows with power, fully equipped and ready for whatever comes her way. She vows to use her artifacts on her dad's men if they show any sign of nonsense. Suddenly, she pauses, sensing a strange presence that stops her in her tracks. She turns to her stone-faced ladies and asks if they felt something strange just now. One of the maids tenses up, confirming he felt something unsettling as well. He realizes the strange feeling is coming from outside the window. The maids snatch Cian and rush to the balcony as a group of men gather below. One of the strange men holds up a bizarre, lumpy pink flower with two leaves. Cian is completely bewildered, wondering if these oddballs are actually her dad's friends. With sinister grins, her maids say the men want to give her pretty flowers, but Cian knows better. They're obviously trying to poison her. The suspicious group huddles together for a moment before scattering, making Cian think it's time to run. But one of the men stays behind, striking a shy pose with the flower, which only makes Cian more suspicious. Watching the bizarre scene unfold, she can't shake the feeling that something is very strange. She realizes the ominous feeling she sensed earlier wasn't from those weirdos, as a heavy boot steps onto the grass nearby. A mysterious figure with dark hair watches the mansion from the woods, wondering if what they felt was just their imagination. A cute chibi witch invites readers to visit the Magastoon website for more series. As fireworks explode over Rochellen Forest, Cian watches intently, knowing the hunting tournament is finally starting. At the tournament grounds, finely dressed nobles mingle and enjoy the festivities. Sitting beside her father, Cian insists her ridiculously tall chair is perfect for a future villain, all while scanning the crowd for her dad's subordinates. A short distance away, her father's two bizarre subordinates stand ready, their horse looking just as unhinged as they are. One of the subordinates remarks on their amazing appearance, but admits he might be scared if he saw them up close. Cian gives herself a quick pep talk, slapping her cheeks and telling herself not to be scared. Her father blushes, sweetly telling Cian he's heading out for the hunt. A woman approaches him, calling him Sir Count, and Cian decides she needs to give her dad some praise. Two blushing ladies offer him their personally embroidered handkerchiefs for good luck. Cian remembers the tournament tradition. ladies give knights handkerchiefs to tie to their swords for luck. Realizing her duty as a duchess, she frantically searches her dress, wondering if she brought anything to give him. Success, she pulls out her pink bib, complete with a cute bunny pattern. She hesitates, watching her dad with another lady, and worrying that her bib is too shabby to give him. Casting her doubts aside, she runs forward and tugs on her father's sleeve to get his attention. Blushing, she holds out her bib, promising a better gift next time, and telling him to be safe. Her dad's face lights up as he accepts the bib, vowing to bring back the prettiest animal just for her. In a cute doodle, Cien cheers her dad on with all her might. He waves goodbye, and Cien waves back, secretly relieved that her dad has absolutely no sense of style. With her father gone, it's time for business. She settles in to monitor his subordinates. Through a crystal ball, she watches the hunt begin, only to see the three buffoons chasing a tiny rabbit. One of them triumphantly catches the bunny by its ears, looking way too proud of himself. But the tables turn as the little rabbit unleashes a flurry of punches, proving to be a formidable opponent. Cien is unimpressed. She watches through the crystal ball, utterly baffled by the incompetence she's witnessing. As the rabbit hops away from the defeated trio, she wonders why they can't even catch one little bunny. The situation escalates as the men flee on horseback from a giant, fluffy, and apparently terrifying white rabbit. It dawns on her that they really are that weak, and she has a horrible flashback of her dad introducing them as friends. She realizes she might have to protect them too. This was definitely not part of the plan, she thinks, as these spectral images of other women appear in the crowd around her. Ping, as Cien stands quietly in the room, a sudden flash of light alerts her to danger. Her earring glows, its grandma's protective armor reacting to a threat. She realizes what this means. Someone out in the forest is targeting her. Suddenly, a massive blast of green magic slices through the air, barely missing them. Unfazed, Cien calmly informs her maids that someone is trying to use magic on them. Her maids crack their knuckles, eyes burning with rage as they vow to catch whoever dared to target their young lady. Cien scoffs internally, thinking these amateurs are small fry if she can track them so easily. She pinpoints the source of the magic deep in the forest and decides to strike the second they attack. She wonders if they're trying to kidnap her to use as a hostage against her father. But then, a sudden realization hits her as she connects the dots. It's not her they're after. Remembering her dad's happy wave, she realizes he's the real target. With a new plan in mind, she turns to her maids and declares they're sneaking into the forest. Her expression hardens with resolve. She has to save her dad. Elsewhere, Matthias's two henchmen debate how to capture a rabbit alive when a tiny goblin pops out of the bushes. A close-up reveals the nervous-looking goblin, who has no idea it just stumbled into the worst possible place. The henchmen decide the goblin is sturdy, cute, and would make a great pet for Cien. They grin with disturbing delight, agreeing that the little creature is very cute. With a terrifyingly intense aura, one of them holds up the goblin. Certain Lady Cien will love her new gift. The poor goblin is sweating pure fear as the men loom over it, trying to coax it closer. And so the great goblin hunt begins, with the two men gleefully chasing their future present. Crying his eyes out, the goblin flees for its life, wondering what he did to deserve these idiots. Meanwhile, a group of shadowy figures reports that their magic is being blocked, preventing them from kidnapping their target. Their eye-patch-wearing leader smirks, correctly guessing Matthias put up a barrier to protect the nobles. He decides on a new plan. Forget the main target and lure the kid Cien out instead. The group seems confused by the change of plans, but their leader confirms Cien is now the target. Just then, Cien herself pops out of the bushes, innocently asking if they were talking about her. Talk about perfect timing. The kidnappers are frozen in stunned silence, unable to believe their luck. They gasp in utter shock, realizing their target has literally just walked up to them. Playing it cool, they ask what she's doing here, and she perfectly plays her part, claiming she got lost. The leader's eyes gleam as he offers to take her home, internally mocking the stupid child for falling into their trap. Cien keeps up the act, asking the man if he's lost too. The men laugh, explaining that they're on a job for a very important person. Cien imagines how cool their boss must be, while the kidnapper boasts they work for someone very beautiful. Giddy with excitement, Cien thinks she might get to meet another pretty person soon, but her expression darkens as she realizes they're spilling all their secrets just because she's a kid. Trying to lure her, the leader offers her a piece of candy. She sweetly refuses, leaving the men stunned as their leader insists she'll eat it whether she wants to or not. But his menacing grin falters as he realizes something is very, very wrong. With a mischievous sparkle in her eye, San reveals the secret weapon she's been hiding. It's one of her grandma's artifacts, a small but powerful explosive device, ready to go. Bang! A huge purple explosion erupts in the distance, a signal for her backup. The sound echoes through the forest as birds scatter into the sky. In the aftermath, the three would-be kidnappers are tied firmly to a tree, completely defeated. The maids arrive, identifying the men as wanted child kidnappers and declaring themselves the cleanup crew. Cian stands over the captured men as her maids ask for orders on how to deal with the scumbags. She decides to leave them, figuring their boss will punish them for their failure. No need to dirty their own hands. Now she wonders about the beautiful mastermind they mentioned, knowing this won't be their last attempt. With her arms crossed, she vows to grow even stronger before they can try anything again. Just then, a maid alerts her that the hunting tournament is almost over, and Cian's face pales with shock. "Hurry!" she cries, getting swept up by a maid as they rush to get back before her dad finds out she was ever gone. The hunting tournament grounds are bustling with tents and activity. Cian spots three figures on horseback, returning from the hunt, instantly recognizing her father. "Daddy," she calls out as he arrives, a heavy sack slung over his shoulder and a proud, fang-bearing grin on his face. Cian is overjoyed that he's back safe and sound, convinced he's caught something amazing. But the grand prize is revealed, a single, sad-looking goblin tied up and dangling from a stick. Cian is left utterly speechless, her excitement instantly vanishing. Inside, Matthias asks what she thinks of his gift, while one of his men presents the very small and cute goblin. With a hopeful, blushing smile, her dad asks, "What do you think, Cian? Cute, right?" His two henchmen chime in that it's also a highly nutritious food, leaving Cian to wonder if it's a pet or an emergency ration. With a cherubic smile, she gives her honest, brutal opinion. It's ugly. She continues her review. It's scary, weak, and he should have caught something more intimidating, leaving his two aides literally spewing blood from the emotional damage. Noticing his men's despair, her dad offers to show her what else he caught. He leans in, promising that this one is even cuter. Opening his gloved hand, he reveals a tiny, fluffy white bird that sparkles with light. "Whoa!" Cian gasps, her eyes wide with wonder as her dad explains it's a long-tailed tit. She gently cuddles the little bird, calling it pretty and promising to cherish it. But she's still confused, thinking the point of a hunting tournament is to catch something powerful to show off. Her dad just smiles, deciding that cute is indeed better. He turns to his henchmen, who are still holding the goblin, and smugly asks, "You heard that?" Cian agrees wholeheartedly, declaring that scary things like goblins shouldn't exist, and that cuteness reigns supreme. Elsewhere, the beautiful Duchess Delphia taps her finger, annoyed that her spies haven't reported back yet, and wondering if they're dead. She sighs, declaring how much she hates waiting. A wicked idea forms as she realizes she could just go find them herself. A sinister smile spreads across her face as she muses that the idea sounds fun. Back at the celebration banquet, a massive feast is underway, but Cian is feeling incredibly distressed. Seeing her dad's scary-looking friends now seem so innocent and downtrodden makes her question everything. With a sigh, she worries she'll have to become the young head of the household just to keep things in order. Still, she feels a glimmer of hope, knowing she's gotten stronger since dealing with those spies. Her dad notices her gloom and gently asks if she doesn't have an appetite. She internally fumes at him for being a fool who doesn't understand her, wishing he'd brought back a lion or a dragon instead. He asks if lions and dragons aren't too scary, then smirks, admitting those kinds of monsters are his specialty, as he secretly stomps on his aide's foot. He tells her to eat up and not to worry about scary things, completely missing the point. Cian puffs her cheeks, frustrated that her dad underestimates her and doesn't see her potential to rule from the shadows. A light bulb goes off. Maybe she should tell them about the spy she caught to prove herself. "Dad," she calls out, getting his attention before announcing, "A spy came while you were gone." His expression instantly darkens, his eyes glowing red as he asks if she means the bad men, his face turning pale. Worried he will overreact, she quickly backpedals, claiming the maids chased them away and deciding to keep her own involvement a secret. Matthias clenches a glowing fist, his voice low and dangerous as he says, "Ah, I see." He sweeps her into a tight hug, asking if she was terrified. "No," she insists, telling her dad to get a grip, Though her flushed cheeks betray her a little, he holds her close, whispering that they are in a state of emergency and that their household is a terrifying one. She pinches his cheek, lecturing him that instead of hunting rabbits, they should be training and doing bad things. A faint, knowing smile plays on his lips as he listens to her scolding. He gently sets her back down. The moment hangs in the air as she looks up at him. He promises her that all she needs to do is have happy thoughts, because he'll personally make sure everyone in the family becomes a good person. With a warm smile, he tells her not to worry, leaving her looking on with a mix of awe and concern. The scene shifts to the family mansion under a starry night sky. Cien sits alone in a grand room, lost in quiet contemplation. Her two maids ask what Lady Cien is thinking about, but she just brushes it off. With a weary plop, she falls onto a chaise lounge, claiming it's nothing at all. Internally, though, she's realizing that her dad's big, scary friends are all bark and no bite. She was hoping for some real villainy, but they're just a bunch of softies who like cute things just like her dad. Just then, a maid presents a gift box, explaining that Lord Matthias's friends prepared it for her. He asks if she'd like to open it, and she perks up, excited by the prospect of a gift. But as she opens the box, she's greeted by a creepy stitched-up bunny that looks more like a cursed doll. While one of the maids proudly claims they made it themselves, Cien can only think, "This is cute," before forcing a sweet smile. She can't help but picture those huge, burly men painstakingly sewing this tiny doll with their giant hands. Clutching the doll, she's suddenly burdened by the vision of a future where she has to support these goofs. Her maid mistakes her sigh for worry over the spies, but Cien confirms that's not it. When the maid confirms the spies are dead, she thinks, as expected, and wonders about the beautiful person who sent them. The maids reveal they've asked the press family to investigate, leaving Cien momentarily confused. One of the maids, Bench, explains he used to be with the press family, who are pros at gathering info and already have leads. Cien hugs her new doll, relieved that things are being handled. The maids formally introduce themselves, Bench of the press family and Deadly of the FTE family. Her mind connects the dots with a jolt. Bench press and deadlift. She flexes an imaginary bicep, thinking even their names sound ridiculously strong. But then she realizes this is a big deal, and not something to be taken lightly. For noble maids to reveal their true names and family ties is the ultimate vow of lifelong loyalty. Overcome with emotion, Cien hugs the doll and tearfully calls out to her new, loyal retainers, Bench and Deadly. She gratefully accepts their pledge, telling them she'll be counting on them from now on. Fired up, they vow to snap the necks of any future spies like chickens, much to Cien's alarm. Deadly suddenly remembers to ask Cien if she has an appointment scheduled for the next day. Her eyes fly open in shock as she remembers her important mission. The scene shifts to a holy temple where a blonde man kneels in prayer as the narration mentions her next quest. The quest is revealed. She must make the holy night of the Sanoa temple hers. With a determined sparkle in her eyes, Cien announces she has something very important to do tomorrow. She recalls a scene from the original novel where her father, Axel, faced off against a holy knight named Ted. Although their battle was interrupted, everyone knew Ted's holy power would have ultimately defeated Axel. Lying in bed, Cien resolves to find Ted's lost sibling to win his favor, but without holy power, it will be a challenge. She tries to recall the novel's description of the child, dressed in rags, with a miserable posture and scars all over. The only memorable feature was their pair of sparkling, jewel-like blue eyes. The description reminds her of her own past, strengthening her resolve to save the child, who is likely in an orphanage. The chapter title appears against a bright blue sky. The scene opens on a dark, grimy alley filled with crows and a demonic-looking cat. Cien, disguised as a commoner in a red hood, arrives in the slums with Bench and Deadly, who are cloaked to look like small kids. Giddy with excitement, she declares that their little outing feels like a real adventure. Their presence immediately draws the unwanted attention of two local thugs. One of the men pulls a knife, mocking Cien's hat and trying to intimidate the kids. Deadly is ready to throw down, but Cien stops him, insisting they ignore the thugs to save time on her mission. Her loyal maids instantly agree, their faces beaming as they refocus on the objective. Enraged at being ignored, the thugs call them out for their insolence. The leader smashes a pot, demanding they pay a toll or get their faces torn apart. One of the maids clenches a fist, thinking Cien's mercy is wasted on these scumbags. With a powerful punch, one of the maids decks a thug, declaring they always go all out, even on the homeless. Screech! The beatdown is swift and brutal, with the maids quickly apologizing to Cien for the interruption. San watches the chaos unfold, looking slightly dazed by her maid's efficiency. Suddenly, a cry for mercy from a nearby alley catches her attention, and she wonders if it's a child from an orphanage. She spots a small, blonde-haired child and notices the name Rukri written on their basket, connecting it to the Rukri orphanage. With the thugs unconscious, Deadly reports to Lady Cien that everything's been handled. Cien thanks her maids, but says she wants to talk to the child. Cien approaches the small, blonde-haired boy, gently explaining she's looking for someone and isn't a bad person, but he seems dizzy and confused. "Ta-da!" she exclaims, offering him a handful of colorful candies. She thinks to herself this was originally for Ted's sibling, but oh well. The little boy looks down shyly, a deep blush on his face as he quietly asks if he can come closer. Now sitting together on a bench, she asks if he knows where the orphanage is. He confirms he lives there, explaining he'd come out to find food. As expected, Cien thinks, asking if he can help her. The boy is surprised, wondering what help he could be, while internally grumbling that he looks older than her. She gives him a thumbs up, insisting only a little one like him can help, and promising to repay him for his trouble. With a sparkle in her eye, she waits for his answer, leaving him to wonder what's happening. The boy agrees to help, and Cien tells him to follow her. Noticing a flash of blue in his eyes, she wonders if this could be the one she's looking for. As they walk, the boy quietly admits that he never had a family to begin with. He looks away, solemnly confirming that he's an orphan as they head down a cobblestone street. Cien tries to cheer him up, recalling that in the novel, the younger sibling actually knew about their brother and waited for him. She realizes this means the real sibling was aware of his existence, which makes her doubt that this boy is Ted's lost brother after all. They arrive at a huge, intimidating mansion, and the boy nervously declares the place is terrifying. Cien asks if children still live there, but he explains that the orphanage shut down and all the kids were scattered. The boy correctly guesses she's looking for a child, and Cien confirms that she is. His brilliant blue eyes glisten with understanding as he softly says, "I see." Cien's heart aches as she realizes this child was abandoned by his family and left all alone in this ruined place. "Do you want to come with me?" she asks, holding out her hand. The question shocks the boy and her two cloaked maids. He panics, stammering that he'd just be a burden, but Cien tells him it's okay, even if he can't help. With a confident smile, she declares that children are meant to be happy and extends her offer again. The word happiness echoes in his mind, his eyes wide with a feeling he's never known. Overcome with joy, a huge smile spreads across his face as he eagerly shouts, "Yes!" Cien cheers for his choice and grabs his hand, but then her face falls. She's running out of time. She worries that she's about to miss her meeting with Ted, who will be disappointed she couldn't find his sibling. Just then, a handsome blonde man in an elegant tunic appears, calling out her name. It's Ted, and he announces that he believes he's finally found his younger sibling, leaving Sire utterly flabbergasted. As tears well up in Ted's eyes, Cien can only wonder who he's crying for. The small boy looks up at the stranger, asking who he is, and stating that he doesn't have a family. Cien is officially losing it, her mind racing as she tries to figure out what on earth is going on. Her internal screaming continues as she frantically wonders what is happening right now. A moment ago, she was rushing the boy away to meet someone by 3 o'clock, but now her plans have completely derailed. Cien defends her actions, explaining the person they're meeting is a holy knight. The boy's eyes widen in awe. He looks down with a wistful expression, admitting that holy knights are incredible and that he'd always dreamed of becoming one. Seeing the deep sadness in his eyes as he talks about his dream, Cien's heart goes out to him. She leans in close, encouragingly telling him that he can definitely become one and offering to introduce him to a holy knight herself. Meanwhile, Ted passionately pleads with the other boy, insisting, "I didn't abandon you." The small boy glares back, his voice thick with accusation as he insists, "No, you did. You abandoned me." Ted desperately explains it's a misunderstanding and that he searched everywhere, but the boy coldly calls him a liar. Cien and her maids watch from a nearby alley as the supposed heartfelt reunion devolves into a bitter argument. She sighs in disappointment, having thought that simply bringing them together would magically fix everything. The boy angrily confronts Ted, questioning how he could become a holy knight after leaving him behind. Ted flinches, clearly hurt. Looking pained, Ted explains they were too poor and apologizes for not finding him, calling him a Sheed. The boy rejects the name, declaring it no longer exists. "Wait a second," Cien interrupts, stepping into the tense confrontation. She points right at Ted, demanding to know if he really abandoned his brother. Ted is stunned, furiously denying it and swearing he's been searching this whole time. Kneeling before her, he insists he never stopped looking. Cien can see that his feelings for his brother are real, but she knows the kid can't see it. From what she read in the novel, Ted's brother never understood his side, and she notices the boy's little hand is trembling. She realizes Ashid is shaking, probably terrified of being abandoned again, and concludes that these two just need time. Cien steps between them and makes a bold declaration. She'll take care of his brother for now. She tells a shocked Ted to calm down and meet them again in 2 weeks. That's impossible, Ted protests, insisting Ashid is his brother. But Cien calmly suggests it would be better to give him some time to think. Cien tells Ted to let the boy decide for himself, leaving the little blonde child to stammer hesitantly. Without a word, the boy turns and runs toward a waiting carriage, making his choice clear. Ted formally addresses Cyan as the young lady of House Mermond, entrusting his brother to her care. With a desperate, blushing face, Ted makes a shocking vow. If she does this, he will be hers. Cien agrees, thinking it's not about winning him over, and gives Ted a 2-week deadline to return. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Ted places a hand on his heart, vowing to never forget her kindness. Waving from the carriage window, Cien says goodbye, and feels relieved to have earned the Holy Knight's trust. She reflects that she has now secured a powerful fortress against her father, Axel's, threats. Inside the carriage, Cien and the little boy, Ashid, fidget in an awkward silence. Ashid shyly thanks her for taking him in, and a notification appears. Gained a boy to raise properly. Cien is immediately hit with a wave of guilt over her scheming, as her conscience shatters. She takes his hands, sincerely promising to fill his life with happiness, a vow she truly means. His brilliant blue eyes sparkle with unshed tears, moved by her heartfelt promise. A radiant smile breaks across his face as he joyfully shouts, "Yes." As their carriage departs, Cien decides a nice bath is the first order of business, while the scene shifts to a dark, foreboding mansion. A man with dark hair walks purposefully down the grand, shadowed hall. The thugs from the alley are beaten and imprisoned, cursing the demon brat, while a shadowed figure calls them noisy. The dark-haired man, his red eyes glowing, coldly orders a knight to get rid of them. He clenches a fist in fury, enraged that those thugs dared to call his beloved daughter a demon. A flashback shows a sweet, innocent Cien calling for her daddy, a precious child who wouldn't harm a fly. Back in the present, he mutters that things are getting troublesome now that another family, the Delphias, are involved. He mentally lists his powerful enemies: Delphia, his own house of Mirmond, the Senate, the Emperor, and the Pope. He resolves to eliminate them all, but knows one mistake could be fatal. His first target is the Pope, to avenge someone named Uella. He muses that while the formidable mage is a threat, the real problem is the powerful figurehead of Axel Mirmond. Alone in his room, he despairs over finding a way to defeat his enemy when suddenly a cheerful voice calls out, "Daddy." His dark mood vanishes instantly, replaced by a dazzling, joyful smile as he calls out Cien's name. Cien appears, giggling happily in a new dress with bright green ribbons. She gently pushes Ashid forward by the hand and tells her father to say hello. Axel's smile freezes and shatters, his eyes turning cold and dark at the sight of the boy. Now cleaned up in fine clothes, Ashid nervously introduces himself as Cien's new friend. Cien proudly declares her plan to make the boy her cute little subordinate, much to her father's dismay. Overwhelmed, Axel thinks to himself that he already has way too much on his plate to deal with this. As the two children look up at him expectantly, he silently wonders where on earth this kid came from. A close-up shows Cien beaming, completely oblivious to the tension she's created. Though he hates it, Axel forces a smile, deciding he can't upset Cien, and reluctantly welcomes her adorable new friend. Cien throws her arms up in victory, and Ashid adorably sprouts puppy ears as Axel grants his permission. Axel remains suspicious, noting the boy's timing and the adoring way he gazes at Cien. A chibi version of Axel fumes with jealousy, crossing his arms like an angry cat. Ashid clenches his little fists, filled with a newfound determination to prove himself useful. Cien notices his resolve, and silently hopes the children won't ever have to worry about being abandoned again. Seeing her fleetingly sad expression, Axel is struck by a wave of affection and protectiveness. He reaches for her, and she looks up at him with wide, innocent eyes. She proudly announces she rescued an adult knight too, leaving him flustered as he tries to explain that knights are bad. Clinging to his leg, Xian clarifies she didn't rescue him, but a real knight, not a pretend one like him. Axel looks utterly wounded. "So I'm a fake knight?" he asks, his heart breaking a little. He thinks to himself that usually, playing the hurt daddy card gets an immediate apology from his daughter. But Xian just keeps giggling, completely missing his attempt at emotional manipulation. He's officially shook. His ultimate weapon has no effect. As a notification reads Shock 1 stack, Xian suggests playing hunting games with Ashid to start his training early. Her father is utterly flabbergasted, his mind reeling, as Xian happily declares they're hunting goblins after dinner, a plan Ashid eagerly agrees to. Later, Axel walks down the hall, pondering the changes in his delicate daughter. He stops, his expression hardening, as he decides that his daughter has no problems. Looking out at the family estate, Axel concludes the Merman family is the real issue, and resolves to investigate Xian's activities, starting with the night. As the sun sets on the mansion, the children politely finish their meal. Now outside in the garden, Xian enthusiastically announces the start of the goblin hunt, and Ashid nervously agrees. Xian looks around for the goblins, recalling that she asked her dad's subordinates to release some nearby for their training. Her maids, however, look incredibly nervous as they try to get her attention. Confused, Xian wonders why goblin hunting suddenly seems so difficult. A maid explains that a masked man ordered the goblins removed from the estate. Seeing his order, Xian mistakenly thinks her dad must feel sorry for them. She beams, thinking her dad is too kind-hearted, and worries how such a softie will survive in this ruthless family. The maid explains that instead of goblins, he sent a replacement, an adorable white cat with a pink bow. Both Xian and Ashid are immediately captivated by how cute the little creature is. Xian's delight quickly turns to frustration, as she fumes that a kitty is useless for strength training and doesn't fit her villainous image. Ashid, however, is completely enchanted, his eyes sparkling, as he whispers that he's never seen a beautiful white cat before. Xian realizes that growing up on the streets, Ashid has likely only ever seen scruffy strays. Seeing how much he adores the cat, she reconsiders her plans and decides to postpone the goblin hunt for today. Later, the two sit on a bench with the sleeping kitten. Ashid asks if her name is Xian, and she happily confirms it. While she tells him to just call her Xian, her maids are in the background getting a serious workout in, lifting massive weights. She then asks if he avoids the name Ashid because of his brother Ted. With sad eyes, Ashid quietly confirms it's because Ted abandoned him. Xian knows that's not the whole truth, but wisely decides it's not her place to interfere. Ashid asks if she's trying to give Ted a chance to explain himself. Xian smiles brightly, insisting kids shouldn't have to do things they hate, and they can worry about difficult things later. Ashid is surprised, admitting he thought that was the entire reason she brought him here. Xian explains that seeing his fear of abandonment reminded her of her own past before she met her father. She earnestly tells him she wants to show him all the good in the world because, more than anything, she wants him to be happy. As a memory of her father's love flashes by, she repeats her wish, leaving Ashid to whisper the word happy in disbelief. A tear forms in his eye as he realizes someone in the world genuinely wants him to be happy. Overwhelmed with emotion, the little boy blushes and says it feels like a dream. When he starts to cry, Xian panics, apologizing for getting too sentimental. She leaps up, declaring that the best cure for sentimentality is a strength-building game. With a mischievous grin, she suggests that a scary game to build courage would be fun. Ashid wipes his tears away and agrees to her plan. His face lights up with a brilliant smile as he says anything is fine, as long as he's with her. Xian excitedly winds up to throw a magical-looking water balloon, ready to start their game. From a window above, Axel watches the two children playing in the garden. He tells himself that his pure, innocent daughter couldn't possibly like goblins and was probably just curious. A man in a dark suit kneels behind him, announcing his return. The man, Matthias, reports that the assassins sent to test the knight were defeated instantly. He explains that after hearing Xian's story, he sent someone to test Ted. Axel admits he was worried Xian had been charmed, but now sees she chose a remarkably talented knight. Matthias presents a letter, stating that the knight, Ted, asked him to deliver it. As Axel takes the letter, Ted's thoughts reveal he knew the assassin was sent by Xian's father, Mr. Matthias. Axel's eyes glow red with shock. The knight saw right through his test. In the letter, Ted swears his sincerity before God and offers his help to Cien. A flashback shows Ted writing the letter with intense focus, accidentally leaving an ink blot on the page. Axel reads on, stunned to find that Ted, a holy knight, is even willing to pledge a knight's vow to his young daughter. Matthias asks how Ted detected the assassin, reporting that his observations show Ted specializes in divine power and is incredibly skilled. An illustration reveals the truth. The Merman family's power of darkness is naturally vulnerable to divine power. A divine power was needed to counter Axel, and by a stroke of fate, Cien found the one knight who could do it. Axel looks worried, wondering if his daughter finding the perfect knight was just a coincidence. He gazes at a vision of a smiling Cien, vowing to protect her innocence so she can grow up bright and happy. He orders Matthias to strike their target immediately upon arrival, deciding he must keep Cien inside tomorrow while his subordinate prepares. Just then, Cien bursts into the room, cheerfully calling out for her dad. She stops dead in her tracks, confused to see a man kneeling before her father. Caught red-handed, her father blushes as she calls out to him again. While Axel internally panics that his cover is blown, Cien simply wonders why the man is on the floor. He fears she's discovered his dark nature, but she just asks if the man was kneeling to beg for potatoes. Seizing the opportunity, Axel brightly agrees, adding that this time it's sweet potatoes to keep things interesting. Cien gives him major side-eye, instantly recognizing another one of her dad's ridiculous lies. Playing along, she points a finger at Matthias and fiercely demands to know the price of his sweet potatoes. Overcome by her adorable ferocity, Matthias can only stammer that she's cute. Wrong answer. Cien stomps, insisting he call her scary, which he quickly does to earn her father's approval. Cien proudly tells Matthias to remember that she's the scary one in the family, not her soft-hearted dad. Annoyed by her family's influence, Cien gets back to business, again demanding the price of the sweet potatoes to protect her dad. Cornered, the poor man stammers, completely at a loss for words. A telepathic command from Axel echoes in his mind: answer wisely and think fast. He sweats, blurting out a random price while having a full-blown crisis about the sweet potato market. Cien turns to her dad, whispering that this guy clearly knows nothing about sales. Relieved his ruse worked, Axel smirks and agrees they should buy some out of pity. But Cien isn't done, asking him why a high-ranking noble would need to farm sweet potatoes in the first place. He's completely stumped, stammering under her inquisitive gaze. Suddenly she gasps with a brilliant idea. He must be building muscle. Axel happily agrees, and Cien recalls the maids were on a sweet potato and chicken diet for the same reason. He mentally gives a shout-out to his maids, whose intense workout routine just saved him from total disaster. With the mystery solved, she happily takes her father's arm. He scoops her into his arms, suggesting a change of clothes and some well-deserved dessert. The warm evening light fills the room, creating a rare moment of peace. He gently caresses her cheek, his heart filled with love. Holding her close, he cherishes this peaceful moment, a feeling he hasn't had in a very long time. His tone suddenly turns grave as he gives her a critical warning. If a woman named Delphia approaches, she must run without hesitation. Cien looks up at him, confused by the sudden order. He calls the woman dangerous, privately vowing to handle the threat himself, but Cien misunderstands and vows to take the woman down herself. The reality of the word danger hits her, and she looks genuinely scared for a moment. Just as he holds her, a strange sound from outside interrupts their conversation. Cien immediately jumps down, declaring that she needs to go investigate. Her father's soul leaves his body as she yells that dessert will have to wait. Left alone, he fumes, wondering who would dare ruin this precious time with his daughter. Outside, Ashid stands opposite a new, blonde-haired boy in a tense face-off. The maids cry out in alarm, warning Cien to be careful as she runs toward the conflict. Ignoring them, she barrels down the grand staircase, drawn by the sound of the confrontation. She realizes instantly that it's the sound of Ashid and a boy named Leonhardt fighting. She runs right past her ghostly, shocked father, who is powerless to stop her. She briefly worries that her dad will be hurt by her sudden departure, but she pushes the thought aside, knowing she can't afford to lose either of those boys if they are to survive. She spots them at the bottom of the stairs, still locked in their dispute. As a mysterious voice demands an explanation, Cien darts between the two boys, who call out her name in surprise. The blonde boy, Leonhardt, immediately grabs her hand, pulling her to safety. His hand closes firmly around hers in a protective grip. He looks down at her with worried eyes, checking to see if she's all right. In a sunlit garden, a dark-haired boy in a mask points at another child, contemptuously asking Sian, "What's that?" Sian and the blonde boy Ashid are horrified. She mentally scoffs that Leonhardt's rude speech is just what you'd expect from a villain's family. She quickly realizes this is a huge misunderstanding, guessing Ashid thought the intimidating Leonhardt was interrogating him. Sian sympathizes with Ashid, thinking Leonhardt's imposing mask and confrontational tone must have been terrifying. With a pained expression, she desperately wishes the two of them could just get along. Stealing her nerves, Sian puffs out her cheeks, ready to intervene. She cheerfully introduces Ashid as her new friend, who will be living with them from now on. Leonhardt eyes the boy skeptically, asking if he's really her friend. Sian confirms, but wonders why he still looks so angry. In a moment of pure drama, Leonhardt demands to know, "What am I to you?" Leaving Sian and Ashid completely baffled. With a dazzling smile, Sian assures Leonhardt that he's her friend too, giving a nervous Ashid a little nudge. Leonhardt falls silent, looking down as he contemplates her answer. Sian tries to soften the mood, calling out his nickname, Bamto. A fierce blue aura erupts around Leonhardt as he vows to become her #1 most treasured friend and to be better than Ashid. Sian and Ashid tremble in fear at his possessive declaration, as she realizes this might be a real quarrel after all. But then, a clever glint appears in her eyes. Having a future villain on her side is a huge win. She smiles and agrees. All right. Ashid, meanwhile, looks down at the ground, utterly dejected. The tension is thick as the three children stand apart, with Ashid clenching his fists, looking like he's about to make a stand. Sian, however, is feeling pretty good about the situation, pleased that she's slowly gathering allies for her cause. She decides to seal the deal with a group hug, pulling the two blushing boys together to celebrate their new friendship with some food. Just then, her father's voice cuts in. Seeing the trio, he notes their conflict seems resolved and tells the maids to prepare snacks in his room. He calls out to Sian, who looks up from her new friends to answer him. Her face lights up with surprise as she sees her dad, Matthias, smiling down at her. She instantly forgets the boys and runs full pelt toward her father. He scoops her up in a warm hug, but tells her with a slight blush that he's a bit busy at the moment. He explains he's going to eat with his friends, leaving the two boys watching from the stairs. And then he unleashes his ultimate weapon, the puppy dog eyes. He looks heartbroken, asking who he'll eat with now. And Sian knows she's been hit by his getting teary-eyed skill. It's super effective. A horrified Chibi Sian realizes she can't resist his sad expression. Racked with guilt, she remembers she hasn't spent much time with him lately and decides she can't possibly make him sad. Held tightly by her dad, she apologizes to Leonhardt and Ashid, postponing their snack date. She figures it's a good chance for them to bond anyway. As they leave, her two mountain-sized maids stand guard in the background. Her dad carries her off as she waves goodbye, calling out to the boys not to fight anymore. Left alone, Leonhardt blushes, wondering why he acted so strangely, and admitting to himself that it felt a lot like jealousy. His mind flashes back to a quiet moment of him and Sian studying together. He acknowledges how weird it felt seeing Sian so close to Ashid, who calls out for her. Meanwhile, Ashid reflects on Sian's father, Matthias Mirmond, the strongest man in the region, and someone supposedly uninterested in children. But Ashid is stunned, realizing that the powerful man is looking at Sian with pure, undisguised affection. The scene shifts as Leonhardt gravely informs Ashid that Matthias is a threat to Sian. He heard it from Sian herself. Leonhardt dramatically explains his theory. Sian is sacrificing herself to protect them from Matthias, imagining a cartoon villain kidnapping her. He vividly remembers Sian's heartfelt plea for him to protect Ashid while she's away. Ashid listens, his expression hardening with newfound purpose. He recalls how Sian saved him, and wonders if he too can be of help to her, picturing her smiling and reaching out to him. With a clench of his fist, Ashid makes his decision. Watching him, Leonhardt concludes that maybe this kid is a good person after all. In a cute doodle, the maid suggests tea for the two boys, who have now forged a powerful brotherly bond over their shared mission. The next day, the scene opens on the magnificent Merman mansion under a clear blue sky. A luxurious carriage arrives, pulling up to the grand estate. An elegant woman in a flowing purple gown steps out, coolly remarking, "It's been a while." With a smirk, the stunning white-haired woman is introduced, Delphia Meermund has returned to the family. Her ornate hairpiece glints against a swirling, ominous purple aura. A devious smile plays on her lips as she thinks to herself that things are finally about to get interesting. As the chapter closes, a cute chibi witch gives a cheerful wave, wrapping up this part of the story. In a grand hall, a maid asks a woman with long white hair and a purple gown if she should prepare her bath. She scolds them, insisting her maids should ask about the soldiers' training and patrols first, but a close-up reveals her true feelings. Her eyes are literally sparkling with hearts. Standing before a collection of taxidermied monsters, she muses that they're most beautiful as preserved specimens. Massive, ethereal white tiger with glowing blue eyes appears behind her. Her maids whisper amongst themselves, calling her an extraordinary individual for her monster taxidermy hobby. With a sly grin, she asks her maids if they gathered information on a girl named Sienne Meermond before she arrived. The maid reports that the retainer's children, Leonhard Meermund and the Duchess of Lucella, have all had contact with Sienne. The white-haired woman dismisses the children, but pauses on the name Leonhard Meermond. She considers him a child with potential, but ultimately weaker than her, and thus unimportant. But the connection to the Duchess of Lucella piques her interest, and she asks what their relationship is. A maid explains that the Duchess dislikes children and holds no affection for a Lord Matthias. The white-haired woman thoughtfully considers this curious, new piece of information. A smile spreads across her face as she simply says, "Good." With a devious look, she stands and declares she'll pay the Duchess a visit herself. The maid panics as the white-haired woman looks on with cold annoyance. She impatiently drags the terrified maid along, demanding to see the Duchess right away. In a beautiful garden, a woman with short dark hair and red eyes sits arranging flowers. The white-haired woman arrives with a wicked smile, ready to confront Duchess Lucella. As she approaches, the Duchess coolly announces the arrival of an uninvited guest. The visitor sarcastically comments on the Duchess's refined hobby, but her eyes narrow at the sight of poisonous red spider lilies. She points out the flowers are deadly, accusing the Duchess of arranging a bouquet that could kill someone. She calls the Duchess an eccentric old lady and insults her mold-ridden home, earning a glare. The Duchess retorts that her peaceful life is better than slaughtering monsters on the frontier. Leaning in, the white-haired woman purrs that killing monsters is far better than wasting time with mold. Getting straight to the point, the Duchess holds out the dangerous red flowers. The visitor reveals her motive. The child Matthias brought is a potential weak spot, and she wants to see how the Duchess reacts. With a sudden whoosh, the Duchess hurls the flowers. The poisoned bouquet stabs into the table just inches from her face, leaving her shocked. She demands to know if this is a duel challenge or an assassination attempt. The narrative note explains that in high society, ladies throw poisonous flowers to challenge each other, just as knights throw swords. The Duchess's eyes glow a menacing red as she commands, "Do not touch that child." The white-haired woman is stunned, finding it impossible that a woman known for being cold and disliking children would get angry over one. When the Duchess flatly forbids her, she wonders if Sienne Meermond has somehow managed to win the old woman over. The Duchess ends the conversation, telling her to leave. Her eyes burn with rage as she vows not to let such filthy dust linger in her home. The visitor remains doubtful, thinking no child could face that scowling woman without being terrified. With a dark smile, she wonders aloud if Sienne is even Matthias's real daughter, questioning if the Duchess would protect a child without the family bloodline. In response, the Duchess crushes the red flower in her gloved hand. A strange, sweet scent fills the air, and the white-haired woman suddenly feels faint. She clutches her face as she recognizes the overwhelming scent of poison. The Duchess coolly confirms it's poison, adding that she doesn't repeat herself 3 times. Stumbling back, the visitor realizes the Duchess doesn't give warnings, she takes action. She clutches her throat, admitting the old woman has spirit and that another second's delay would have been fatal. She now understands the poison was a warning, proof of just how much the Duchess cherishes Sienne, making the girl an even more intriguing mystery. Her expression hardens with a new, intense focus. Against a blood-red background, she realizes it's been a long time since she's felt this excitement. Her heart pounds as a thrilled, predatory smile graces her lips. The scene closes on the intricate dark lace of her gown. A stunning woman with long white hair, Delphia, asks a maid where Sienne Meermond is. When the maid reveals Cian is at kindergarten, Delphia is utterly baffled by the news. Delphia smirks, thinking this just gets better, and announces with a flourish that it's time to go. Meanwhile, at the academy, a blushing Cian sits at her desk, miserably wondering why on earth she's here. She's stuck in a creepy happiness class where the teacher forces the students, including her dad, to chant about being good children. Cian realizes with dawning horror that she's been completely tricked. This was supposed to be a pork cutlet date with her dad. In a flashback, her dad sweetly woke her up to ask if she wanted pork cutlet, a proposal her sleepy self readily accepted. The teacher, standing before a Sunshine Happy Children chalkboard, cheerfully announces it's time for a mind-cleansing meditation session. As the teacher instructs them to breathe, Cian shoots a furious death glare at her oblivious father meditating beside her. While the teacher preaches about loving people, Cian internally screams her villainous manifesto, vowing to become the ultimate evil. Her dad opens his eyes, looking positively angelic with a pure, beatific smile. Cian despairs, realizing the single biggest obstacle to her evil ambitions is the kind-hearted man sitting right next to her. Overwhelmed by the teacher's positivity, she laments that her wicked heart is being purified, ruining her plans. The teacher continues his lesson with a saintly expression, urging the class to care for the wounded and love them. Cian clenches her tiny fist, absolutely refusing to accept a world where her dad is happy being this good. She concludes that by being so purely good, her father has inadvertently become the ultimate villain, the one who reigns over all others. Her thought is punctuated by a glorious image of her dad as a serene, white-winged angel. This is deeply unsettling for Cian, who worries that at this rate, even she might turn kind. Her attention shifts to Leonhardt and Ashid, who are nodding off together in class. She glances over, wondering why they're so sleepy and if they were up to something last night. Shaking her head, she refocuses, telling herself this is no time for distractions. A wave of panic hits her. If her Sunshine dad becomes any more of a Sunshine character, it'll be a complete disaster. Elsewhere, Leonhardt sits across a table from Ashid, coolly telling the younger boy, "You're too weak." Leonhardt lays down the law, reminding Ashid of his duty to protect Cian and to come running to him if anything happens. Ashid meekly agrees, admitting he felt useless when he learned Cian was heading into a death trap for them. He clenches his scraped fist, questioning if he's truly incapable of doing anything to help. Running through a hall, he feels hopeless. Knowing he's just a powerless street kid without special abilities, an idea strikes him. Maybe he should start training to get buff like the mansion's maids, though the thought seems to scare him a little. He suddenly freezes in place. A thought occurs to him. He heard divine power is inherited, and he wonders if he might have that potential after all. But his hopes are immediately crushed, as he remembers divine power manifests early, meaning his chances are slim to none. Feeling lost, he considers finding Ted, the person who abandoned him. Staring at the night sky, he resolves to become stronger, even if it means borrowing Ted's power. Back in class, a sleepy Ashid reminds himself that life is all about your mindset. He reflects on following Cian to the academy, admitting he dozed off after staying up all night thinking. The teacher offers a comforting thought, suggesting that even weakness has its own unique beauty. The teacher's words give Ashid pause, making him reconsider his own perceived weakness. Cian glances over her shoulder, looking at her father. She tilts her head, giving him a curious and slightly concerned look. Ashid also turns, his cheeks flushing as he looks in the same direction. He and Leonhardt sit side by side, both looking a bit shy and flustered. The scene shifts to a bright, sun-dappled forest grove. The teacher announces the next activity is mealtime, where they'll practice mindful eating with a vegetarian meal. Seeing her dad occupied, Sim realizes this is her chance to make a move. She quickly grabs both Leonhardt's and Ashid's hands. She pulls them away, declaring that the kids need some time alone to bond. Her dad looks shocked and flustered, protesting that he can't be left out and that just 10 minutes would be enough. Having successfully escaped, Cian checks on the boys, asking Leonhardt if he's okay. She gazes down thoughtfully, deciding that they all need to be friends. With newfound resolve, she clenches her little fists, ready to make it happen. A thought bubble reveals her new mission. She has no choice but to reform him into a strong villain. Standing between the two boys, the pink-haired girl declares she'll help them reform her dad. The masked boy Ashid blushes, completely misinterpreting her intentions and thinking she wants to reform her dad into a kind person. But a narrator clarifies her true meaning. She wants to turn Matthias into a villain, leaving a chibi version of herself to wonder what went wrong. Ashid immediately offers to help, and Sien starts to lay out her master plan. The little blonde boy clenches his fists, looking both nervous and determined to help. He suggests that if he develops divine power, he could use it, and asks Sien if she possesses such an ability. Looking down at his scraped hand, he seems disheartened for a moment. Suddenly, Sien gets a bright idea, wondering if he's decided to meet someone named Ted. She throws her arms around both boys, praising them for being so cool and ready for action. With a look of pure determination, Sien instructs them to get their fists ready. The three of them join in a fist bump, sealing their promise to work together on the Dad Reformation project. United as a team, Sien rallies her new recruits with a determined, "Let's do this!" As Sien suggests they head back for a snack, Ashid suddenly freezes, sensing something is wrong. He warns the others that he can feel a sinister presence nearby. A menacing blue eye stares from the shadows, before revealing itself to be a black bird perched in a tree, leaving Ashid stunned. The three children stop and look up, their attention fixed on the mysterious bird in the branches. A promotional page features several characters from the series. Staring up at the tree, the three friends watch the strange, solitary bird. Ashid gasps, realizing it's no ordinary bird, and that a powerful force is emanating from it. Sien closes her eyes, contemplating the idea of a bird with such immense power. Her eyes fly open, sparkling with a brilliant, villainous idea. If she tames it, it'll be the perfect sidekick for her evil schemes. Just as she's about to launch her bird-napping plan, her dad appears, and she calls out to him in surprise. She immediately recognizes the furious look on his face. It's the same one he gets when someone tries to scam him. With a menacing aura, he snaps his fingers, his patience clearly gone. He swiftly picks Sien up, declaring it's time to go home, but she protests, worried about the bird. She looks back to see the tree is empty. The bird has vanished without a trace. Her dad sternly informs her that training is over, secretly vowing to deal with anyone who dares to provoke him. Sien watches him leave, convinced he's already figured out their plan, and is proving himself to be the ultimate villain. A hand with sharp black nails glows with a sinister power. Elsewhere, the white-haired woman laughs to herself, amused that Matthias has caught on to something. She notes that one of the three children possesses divine power, as a magical glow surrounds the small blonde boy. Pondering this, she finds it strange that people with supernatural abilities seem drawn to the children. While a maid warns against underestimating Sien, the white-haired woman decides killing them now would be a waste of good entertainment. A wicked smile forms on her face as she confirms her decision with a simple, "Yeah." Knowing Axel returns in a month, she decides to have some fun with the kids before they're doomed, starting by befriending them. A maid stammers out the name Delphia, who is now blushing furiously, wondering how the kid managed to charm her before they even met. Back at the manor, two identical maids enthusiastically welcome Sien home. As her dad holds her, Sien cheerfully greets the maids, who inform her that 2 letters have arrived. Now on the couch, Sien learns one letter is from Ted the Holy Knight, and she's thrilled to finally have news from him. But the second letter is from Delphia Mirmond, leaving Sien shocked and confused as a dark image of Delphia flashes in her mind. Her father's expression becomes grim as he realizes the letter could be incredibly dangerous. He puts on a gentle smile, telling Sien he'll read the letter first since it's addressed to him, but she just looks at him quizzically. Sien knows her dad could be right about the danger, but she decides that's exactly why she must be the one to read it. Her dad tries a different tactic, sweetly suggesting they can just read it together. She sighs, realizing her dad isn't going to give up easily this time. Turning on the waterworks, she looks up with teary eyes and accuses him of lying to her. Her dad completely panics at the sight of her tears as she insists he has a duty to listen to her. He tries to explain that Delphia is dangerous, and he's only trying to protect her from potential risk. Defeated, he hangs his head and apologizes. But Sien feels a pang of guilt, thinking she might have been too harsh on her poor dad. After a tense confrontation, a teary-eyed Sien hugs her father, realizing she completely misunderstood him. As 2 maids clap with relief, Matthias kneels before Sien, asking if they're good now, and she happily agrees. Later, Sien looks over an invitation with a worried expression, wondering what kind of plan is behind this sudden tea party. In a cute fantasy, she recalls her father's affection and wonders if the invitation was sent with love. Gritting her teeth with determination, she decides that whatever the plan is, she'll face it head-on and be fully prepared. Sien proudly declares she's a noble now too, prompting a reluctant Matthias to agree she should meet Delphia at least once. While holding Cian, Matthias emits a dark aura, vowing to keep her safe anywhere as she calls him kind, completely unaware of his protective fury. Cian feels a surge of confidence while reading a letter, thinking that if Ted and his divine power are with her, Delphia won't be scary at all. But the letter reveals a problem. Lady Gabrielle of the Sonoa Temple has requested Ted's protection, a duty he must fulfill as a holy knight. The letter ends with a hopeful note. Ted wants to be officially appointed as Cian's knight afterward, giving her a small bit of relief. Cian recalls a past visit to the temple, where a young boy threatened his friends by saying he'd tell Gabrielle, realizing if Gabrielle is just keeping Ted for herself, things could get very complicated. She worries that if Gabrielle keeps summoning Ted, she might end up in an unexpected conflict with the influential priestess. Back in the present, Cian sits on her father's lap, fidgeting with the letter and wondering what she should do now. A knock sounds at the door, and a voice from the hallway calls out her name. As Cian and Matthias look up, a small blonde boy with a familiar vest enters the room. The boy is introduced as Acid, leaving Cian to wonder what he's doing here. Meanwhile, inside the Sonoa Temple, the Holy Knight Ted stands before the blue-haired novice priestess. The priestess, Gabrielle, looks up at him coolly and asks what he wants to say. Ted thinks about her power, noting that even the Pope has taken an interest in her, allowing her to command the Holy Knights as she pleases. He informs her that he can only serve as her guard for this one journey, as he has prior commitments. Gabrielle explodes with rage, shocked that he, her supposed knight, would dare to have other commitments. "You're supposed to serve me," she declares, her voice echoing in the chamber. Ted tries to explain himself, looking flustered by her outburst. He stands his ground, though his expression reveals his inner conflict. Gabrielle shoots him a furious glare, silently daring him to defy her. Ted calmly states that his commitment is to Cian of the Mirmond family. With a condescending smirk, Gabrielle warns him not to make a decision he'll regret over someone like Cian. Shocked by her dismissive tone, Ted asks if she's actually contradicting him right now. He stands silently, his resolute expression making his decision clear. Gabrielle is left speechless, realizing no one has ever dared to challenge her authority before. It's a strange and unsettling feeling for her. After all, Ted is her knight. "Then I'll take my leave," Ted says, turning to walk away as Gabrielle calls after him in disbelief. Fuming, she thinks to herself that everything was perfectly peaceful until that brat Cian showed up. She reflects on the Sonoa Temple, believing it existed solely for her and her ambitions. Her life was a cycle of prayer and healing, all designed to strengthen her own influence and power. Simply put, no one in the temple was supposed to be able to defy her, but her power is already cracking. She lost her hand-picked priests just for toying with that little Mirmond girl. And now, even Ted is slipping from her grasp, choosing to serve someone else. That girl is ruining everything, and Gabrielle clenches her fist, vowing she won't let Lady Cian Merman get away with this. Back at the Merman mansion, a nervous voice explains, that's why. It's Acid, fidgeting nervously as he stands before Cian and her father. Cian is flustered, barely able to squeak out, "Really?" Acid clarifies that he isn't forgiving her, but Cian reminds him he said he never wanted to see Ted again. She reveals her true motive. She wants to meet Ted to find out if she inherited divine power, turning Acid into a whimpering puppy with the news. And so, Matthias, Cian, and Acid head to the temple together, an unlikely trio on a new mission. Cian explains her father came along as a guardian, his stern expression showing just how seriously he takes the potential danger. As they're greeted by an escort, Cian steels her resolve, ready to unleash her artifact if her father or Acid are threatened. Two temple officials offer to guide them to the testing chamber, but Cian suspects they're more like watchdogs than escorts. There's just one problem. When Matthias asks for Sir Ted, an official informs them he's missing, having been sent to guard a priestess's tea gathering. Cian is immediately suspicious, knowing Ted would have cleared his entire schedule for Acid. No one is more important to him. A formal notice states that Lord Ted has been dispatched to guard a priestess's tea gathering. Cian asks her father if Ted is guarding Lord Gabriel, and the black-haired man confirms it's true. Cian narrows her eyes suspiciously, wondering if her dad is deliberately keeping her away from Ted. Holding her father's hand, she tells the blonde boy, Ashid, that she'll just take the divine power test first. It seems Ashid finally worked up the courage to go, but the timing couldn't be worse. Her father tells Ashid he must be disappointed, since he came all this way just to see Ted. Ashid startles for a moment before quietly insisting that he's okay. Seeing beams, happily declaring he's fine because he has her now. Hearing her words, a flustered Ashid blushes, thinking only of Lady Seen. His cheeks turn bright red as he's overcome with emotion. Sien looks at him, completely baffled by his sudden blushing fit. A light bulb goes off. She figures he must be terrified of taking the divine power test. Taking his hand, she offers to hold it all the way to the testing room, making him even more flustered. As they walk, Ashid thinks to himself that a sweet scent is coming from Lady San. He's completely captivated, certain he'll never forget her scent. Filled with resolve, he vows to protect her with his own 2 hands as they approach a grand door. Sian suddenly realizes her father has let go of her hand. A priest informs Ashid that he must proceed alone from this point and asks if he's ready. Clenching his tiny fist, Ashid steels himself and confirms that he's ready to go. He walks alone down a brightly lit ethereal hallway. Sian watches him leave, a hint of worry on her face. The scene shifts to a tea party, where Sian has an invitation from a woman with white hair. The white-haired woman, Delphia, smirks, pleased that her invitation was accepted so quickly. She watches with interest as a very determined-looking Sian pours her a cup of tea. Sian stirs the cup, her expression still deadly serious. She cheerfully presents the cup to Lady Delphia, announcing that it's lemon black tea. Delphia thinks Sian is even cuter in person and accepts the tea, fighting the urge to poke her cheek. Taking a sip, she relaxes, convinced that such a tiny child couldn't possibly have set a trap. But a silver spoon on her plate suddenly turns purple, revealing Poisona gift from her grandmother. She's shocked to be taken down so easily, theatrically asking if this means she's going to die. Sian calmly meets her gaze and declares, "No, I can save you." Delphia asks if she has a weapon, and Sian simply confirms that she does. With a serious look, Sian explains that there's something she wants in return. As her hand trembles, she feels the poison spreading, realizing there's no time to argue. Sien's internal monologue reveals her master plan: poison her target, then make her demands. Delphia realizes she's completely misjudged this 5-year-old, who is far more dangerous than she appears. Instead of being angry, Delphia lights up with excitement, asking if this means she'll be Sien's subordinate. Sian is thrown for a loop, stuttering that being a subordinate isn't really necessary. Her thoughts reveal her true goal. She only wanted enough of Delphia's power to keep her from threatening Matthias. Delphia is absolutely thrilled, giddily declaring that she's ready to entrust her entire life to Sian. Sian can't believe it. She expected rage, not this. Did her grandma give her happy poison by mistake? Delphia conjures a brilliant mana crystal, the same silver-white color as her hair. She hands over the crystal, now a necklace, but Sian huffily protests being called a little one. With a sly grin, Delphia corrects herself, respectfully calling her my lady. Sian stares in wide-eyed wonder at the glowing necklace now in her possession. Delphia leans in dramatically, begging to be saved. Sian thinks she's really laying it on thick. Elsewhere, Ashid looks on in awe, recognizing the girl from the messenger sphere and wondering if she's the one who will save him. Sian throws an arm around Ashid, proudly announcing that she officially became an ability user yesterday. The story flashes back to the day before, inside the divine power testing chamber at Sinoa Temple. A priest explains the divine power test to Acid. The cube will glow if he has power, but he shouldn't get his hopes up, condescendingly offering him a chance to go home. Despite the pressure, a nervous Acid quietly insists on taking the test. He places his hand on the cube, and with a brilliant flash, it begins to glow a vibrant blue. The priest is stunned that the cube is glowing, quickly rationalizing that, as Ted's younger sibling, Acid might have a faint trace of power. With a dismissive smirk, he says a little power is nothing special, and announces there's a second test. He presents a Rosario, explaining it glows red for usable power and gold for strong power. He adds that most people with barely any power just get a faint white glow, making Acid even more nervous. You should be grateful just to hold it, the priest scoffs, and a dejected Acid can only agree. Acid's mind races with fear. He made a vow to protect Lady Seen, but is terrified this test will prove he's worthless. A memory of Sian holding his hand flashes through his mind, renewing his determination to do this for her. With a tear rolling down his cheek, he steels his resolve. The priest watches, thinking the test is over, but his face twists in shock at what happens next. An explosive wave of bright blue energy erupts from Acid as he holds the Rosario. The priest reels back in utter disbelief, exclaiming that it's glowing. The Rosario isn't just glowing, it's radiating an overwhelmingly powerful blue light. Bathed in the ethereal glow, Acid stares at the rosario in his hands, completely stunned by his own power. An explanation reveals the 4 types of divine power: defensive and offensive for knights, prophetic for priests, and healing for healers. Lone Healer stands as a symbol of this rare and powerful class. While healers can mend even the most grievous injuries, those born with this divine power are exceptionally rare. The priest recalls an old legend. When someone with the qualities of a healer holds a rosario, a strong blue glow emerges, filling the entire room as Acid confirms the legend is true. The test is over, and a wide-eyed Acid holds the irrefutable proof of his rare healing ability. Later, as Acid practices his newfound magic, he complains it feels gross, but the white-haired Duchess Lucilla tells him to endure it for his master. The Duchess thinks she will endure anything for her master, while Cian watches on, thinking the woman is a seriously intense creep. Acid announces he is numb to the feeling now, and Cian sweetly congratulates him. Cian recalls the tea party, insisting she had no idea the tea was poisoned and only brought an artifact just in case. Worried that Duchess Lucilla might seek revenge, Cian vows to protect her grandma, unleashing a wave of protective fury. With a villainous glint in her eye, Cian changes her story, declaring that her grandma did not poison the tea after all. The Duchess instantly understands Cian poisoned and cured her. Mortified, Cian wonders why she is suddenly being called master. Cian reminds the Duchess that while she gave her power, she certainly did not give her heart. But the Duchess seems to remember differently. Cian and Acid share a look of horror, as Cian thinks accepting the Duchess's heart would be an absolute disaster. The Duchess leans down, innocently asking if grown-ups and kids cannot be friends. Cian, ever the strategist, immediately agrees with a cheerful, "Overcome with joy." The Duchess blushes and thanks her new master. She then turns to a terrified Acid, telling the little healer kid that he's her witness, and he shakily agrees. The scene shifts to the grand and imposing estate of Duchess Lucilla. The Duchess meets a dark-haired man in the parlor. Noting he seemed to expect her, he coolly asks what she wants. She cheerfully informs him her teacup was poisoned, and that she heard he was having a little party of his own. He admits he couldn't stand watching her try to kill Cian, so the Duchess asks if he'd rather sacrifice her instead, and he bluntly agrees. To his surprise, the Duchess smiles, thanking him for the first time. She then drops a bombshell. Cian is now her master, the recipient of her mana orb, and she is happily on the leash. The man is floored by the news, realizing she's completely serious, which she happily confirms. Elsewhere, the Duchess pines for her honey bun, asking a maid if she thinks Cian will visit today. The confused maid wonders why all the Duchess's people have started calling Cian Honey Bun. The Duchess and the dark-haired man now bicker over Cian's title, with him insisting she prefers Honey Bun when it comes from Grandma. They end their meeting with a truce, each telling the other to take good care of their precious master and Honey Bun. The next day arrives at the Mermond estate. A butler stands nervously beside a massive gift bundle, clearly another delivery from the Duchess. 2 maids glare at the package, vowing to dispose of it immediately. As a tiny Cian peeks out, worried about the escalating situation, Cian stands alone in the grand hallway, looking small and a bit nervous. A voice calls out to her as she looks up with wide, curious eyes. The source of the commotion is revealed. A tiny, grumpy-looking goblin is sitting inside a birdcage. Cian is absolutely delighted, thinking he's the perfect, ugly, cute, villain-coded pet she's always wanted. As her dad wonders about the noise, San internally decides on a name for her new pet. Goblin. She turns to her father with a blush, excitedly telling him to look at what she got. In a chibi daydream, she celebrates the gift from Delphia Big Sis, deciding Delphia must be a good person after all. Her father, Matthias, is completely baffled, unable to compute why Cian is happy about a goblin or why she thinks Delphia is a good person. When Cian says she has to write a reply, Matthias gets flustered, realizing she's sending Delphia a handwritten letter when he's never even gotten one. Cian dashes off to write her letter, leaving the goblin to ponder its new life. Her letter speculates that her dad is probably gathering healer types to grow stronger. Cian reads over her work, suddenly worried that she's created a huge misunderstanding that will get her in trouble with her dad. Matthias, however, is secretly pleased, thinking that while it's a misunderstanding, he loves that Cian sees him as a formidable villain. He leans into the role, writing a note for her that teases how dads and villains are surprisingly similar. Later, Matthias holds a giddy sign and her goblin, vowing to shadow his sweet little angel, who is clearly being corrupted by this household. He despairs over his daughter's strange new tastes, swearing to make any bad influences on her wish they were never born. While Delphia watches from afar, Matthias glares possessively, declaring that Cien is his to protect. The scene shifts to the next day at the magnificent Sanoa temple. Ted, the holy knight, formally greets a blue-haired priestess. The blue-haired woman smiles and asks him what seems to be bothering him. His friendly demeanor vanishes as he calls her Gabrielle, revealing a dark side as he prioritizes guarding her over his sibling, Acid. Gabrielle suggests that Acid could assist her alongside Ted, framing it as an honor for the child. The blue-haired priestess casually reminds him that protecting his sister is his job anyway. Ted grows frustrated, accusing her of deliberately keeping him from seeing his sister. A flashback shows a younger version of the boy vowing that his sister Acid is precious to him, healer or not. In the present, Ted looks deeply moved by his own memories and conviction. Gabrielle is shocked, questioning if his sister is truly more important to him than she is. He delivers a stunning blow, coldly stating he has never considered Gabrielle his master. She's left speechless and utterly enraged by his bold declaration. As she tries to restrain him with magic, he announces he's leaving the temple, ignoring her frantic pleas to stop. He pauses only to say, "That's an honor," before continuing on his way. Ted walks out, leaving a furious Gabrielle calling his name. Alone on a balcony, she paces anxiously, wondering what to do now that her knight has abandoned her. Her thoughts drift to a memory of a powerful, blindfolded woman, promising that becoming a saintess grants one everything. She fumes, remembering the life of luxury and admiration that she believes Cien stole from her. Walking through a desolate courtyard, she resolves never to return to her life as the daughter of a fallen noble. A dark resolve hardens her expression as she decides a letter is the key to her comeback. She begins to write, determined not to let her ambitions be taken from her again. Meanwhile, Cien lets out a massive yawn back at the mansion. Sitting beside Ashid, she fights off sleepiness, insisting she's fine when he suggests a nap. She knows she can't rest. She has to organize the timeline of the life of Melodia, the story she's currently derailing. Cien thinks about the original heroine, Melodia, who is likely gathering allies and power on another continent right now. She recalls a crucial plot point. One of Melodia's allies could steal others' powers, a person who would become a huge problem. Despite her best efforts, Cien begins to doze off. As she drifts into sleep, she realizes she must hurry and make a new plan before the original story leads to her family's destruction. Suddenly, a maid bursts in, shouting that he has arrived. Wah! Cien jolts awake, startled and confused about who this unexpected visitor could be. The maid announces that Holy Knight Ted has arrived at the Merman Mansion, shocking both Cien and Ashid. Ted stands before the two children, humbly stating he has come to make his promised vow of loyalty. Cien looks up at him, puzzled, asking how he got away from the temple and Gabrielle so quickly. Cien lets out a sigh of relief, thinking to herself that with Ted now on her side, she can finally relax a little. Cien notices a silent, contemplative Acid who's still processing Ted's vow of loyalty. His cheeks flush as a new determination forms in his young heart. Looking at Cien, Acid decides that he too wants to make a vow of loyalty to her. Cien hesitates, thinking that while Ted is crucial for her plans against Axel, something feels off. She decides that Ted must be allowed to choose his own master freely. Acid, misinterpreting her pause as acceptance, eagerly agrees with a bright, "Yes!" Cien internally questions why everyone suddenly wants to be her subordinate, wondering if she's just that charismatic. Cien turns to Ted and asks if Acid can make a vow too, which Ted confirms is possible now that he's awakened. Insisting they're all friends, she suggests they make a vow as equals, prompting both Ted and Acid to kneel in agreement. Ted gently instructs his younger brother to follow his lead, and Acid quietly agrees. With a steadying hand, Ted prepares to guide Acid through the solemn oath. The brothers hold hands, a symbol of their shared pledge. Ted, the Sword Knight of Sanoa, and Acid, Master of the Blue Light, formally pledge their loyalty to Cien Mirmont. Swearing to protect their eternal lady with their lives, a brilliant surge of sacred power erupts from their vow. Cien is left utterly speechless by the incredible display of magic. After the dazzling light show, she can only think one thing. That was amazing. She notices the two brothers are now blushing and awkward around each other, wondering when their relationship will finally normalize. Wasting no time, Cien claps her hands to get their attention, announcing that it's time to move. She declares they have somewhere to go immediately, leaving Ted and Acid completely baffled. Cien flashes a sly grin, her next grand scheme already in motion. She recalls a key detail from the original novel. The heroine, Melodia, defeated the villain Axel by summoning powerful astrologers from the East. Realizing she can't rely on Ted alone, Cien knows she needs her own loyal astrologers to outmaneuver Axel. In the book, Melodia first tried to recruit a shaman from a local gypsy village, but failed, forcing her to travel east. The image of the powerful white-haired shaman solidifies her resolve. Since she's too young for an international trip, Cien decides to succeed where Melodia failed and recruit the shaman from the gypsy village. Full of excitement, she announces their destination, the back alleys of Ant Street and Pinea Street. Watching her carriage from afar, two men named Matt and Pat note that she's heading into a dangerous part of town. Turns out, her father, Matthias, has already formed the Cien movement tracking unit. Looks like Dad's got spies. Meet Matt and Pat, the overqualified babysitters assigned to shadow the little lady. Elsewhere, an enraged Matthias is convinced some villain is corrupting his precious daughter. He gives a chilling order: find whoever is leading Cien astray and eliminate them immediately. Pat grumbles about their boring assignment, even though other knights are jealous. Matt couldn't care less, admitting he really doesn't understand the appeal of kids. The two would rather be fighting actual villains, but they hope this trip to the alley will at least lead them to Cien's corruptor. They mask up, ready to get this over with, and find the culprit quickly. With a swish, they quickly move through the woods to follow her. They track her to a small orphanage on Ant Street, just as someone knocks on the door. A kindly woman answers the door, and Cien adorably pipes up, "Hugh there!" Now disguised in simple clothes, Cien sweetly explains that she just wanted to ask for directions. Her internal monologue reveals her master plan: go undercover at the orphanage and befriend the local kids to find the gypsy shaman. With her subordinates hiding nearby as backup, she confidently thinks her plan is absolutely flawless. The woman at the door is instantly smitten, thinking Cien is the most adorable scruffy baby she's ever seen. Mistaking Cien for an abandoned puppy, the woman completely misreads the situation, leaving Cien horrified. Before Cien can react, the woman snatches her up and carries her inside. So much for a flawless plan. Her backup team, hidden in the bushes, panics as their charge is unceremoniously rescued. Inside, the woman apologizes after realizing Cien is a noble, admitting she has a serious weakness for scruffy children. After clearing up the misunderstanding, Cien explains she's there to do volunteer work. The woman is overjoyed, happily accepting the offer of an extra hand. She gives Cien her first task: go play with the other children, a perfect opportunity for her to start gathering intel. The orphanage matron worries about sending Cien and Ashid out alone, suggesting there are safer tasks for them. Ted confidently assures the matron that Deirdre is more than capable of handling the task, and Ashid quickly stammers in agreement. The cheerful caretaker happily leads the way, telling Cien that all the other children are gathered in room 201. Cien looks on with a question mark of curiosity as the woman gives her a cryptic warning: please don't be alarmed. A creak of the floorboards is followed by a hostile voice from inside, angrily asking if they're being mocked. The door bursts open to reveal a boy being violently shoved, shocking both Cien and her hooded guardian. The brawl continues as a blue-haired boy pins another child down, furiously daring him to repeat what he said. Reaching out a tiny hand, Cien interrupts with a desperate cry, declaring that violence is bad. Her shout brings the entire room to a standstill as every kid in the orphanage turns to stare at her. Cien is internally fuming. How dare he call her the future's greatest villain a softie? Another boy chimes in, telling the little outsider to mind her own business. His brave facade instantly crumbles into a look of pure, unadulterated terror. That's because Deirdre has entered full protective mode, gripping his wrist and asking what he just said to her baby. The boy who is being bullied realizes they're nobles and accuses them of bringing a knight just to threaten them. As Cien panics about being seen as the enemy, one of the kids defiantly scoffs, acting like he isn't scared. Cien quickly changes tactics, announcing with a determined smile that she's not an enemy, she just wants to be friends. The blue-haired boss and his friend are skeptical, with the girl advising him to just ignore the little brat. The kids clearly see them as condescending nobles, and Cien realizes they are deeply hostile toward her group. She takes a moment, quietly processing their immediate and harsh rejection. However, the boy who is being bullied looks up from the floor, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. Cien ignores the others and holds out her hand to him. "Are you okay?" she asks kindly, offering to help him stand up. He looks down at her tiny, outstretched hand, silently contemplating her offer. As he takes her hand, a mysterious surge of dark energy flashes between their clasped fingers. Cien is left completely puzzled, wondering why his grip was so surprisingly strong as he walks away. A bad feeling washes over her as she wonders if that powerful grip was intentional. She looks at the imposing orphanage and realizes this mission will be far tougher than she ever imagined. The tense atmosphere in the room is suffocating, and Cien has no idea how to break the ice. The group's boss dismisses her as a clueless outsider, but Cien considers trying to hear his side of the story. "Get lost," he says, turning his back on her as another boy calls him Captain. Cien tells Deidre and Ashid to wait for her, determined to follow the boy who just left. She finds him alone in a quiet alleyway just outside the orphanage. He spins around, annoyed that she followed him, and tells her to buzz off if she's just going to lecture him. He scoffs, cynically assuming she'll just pretend to listen before nagging him like everyone else. But with an adorable aura of pure sincerity, Cien promises she will listen to him carefully. His disbelief is shown in a cute doodle where he calls a bunny-eared Cien a liar. He calls her naive, but her earnestness clearly touches his heart, bringing an unexpected tear to his eye. Cien gets momentarily distracted, noticing his hair looked blue inside, but seems brown under the sunlight. He quickly shuts down again, telling her he's done, and walking away, much to Cien's surprise. She watches him walk away, thinking he's really gone for good this time. But Cien Mirmon is no quitter. She clenches her tiny fist, remembering giving up isn't in her vocabulary. Full of renewed resolve, she vows to win over these kids' hearts, no matter what it takes. Her new plan involves calling in the cavalry, a team of 3 elite-looking chefs. The orphanage children look on with wide-eyed wonder, completely captivated by what Cien has arranged. A brilliant idea has struck her, one she's sure will finally break through their tough exteriors. Her grand plan is revealed: Cien's one-day bakery, a pop-up event to bring everyone together over pastries. The logic is, sound baking gives a sense of accomplishment, lifts spirits, and is even proven to lower aggression. Plus, free bread. Her true motive is revealed: befriend the kids, then turn them into her personal network of informants for the long game. She reasons that by helping the poor, she'll attract the sorcerer she's looking for, who the novel described as a homeless person. An unseen observer thinks her thoughts are precious. The matron tells Cien that the children's fight must have weighed on her mind, while 2 of Cien's assistants smirk knowingly in the background. Dressed in a cute puppy-eared apron, Cien admits to herself that she feels a little guilty about her less-than-pure motives. Taking charge, Cien divides the kitchen, assigning the boss and his friends to the left side, and the other children to the right. Her first priority is to get to the bottom of the fight by talking to the boy who is being bullied, so she cheerfully approaches him to team up. The baking lesson begins with the fundamentals: pouring in flour, adding salt and water, and kneading it all together. To her own surprise, Cien discovers she's actually enjoying baking, wondering if she has a hidden talent. The boy she's partnered with just stares at her, remaining completely silent. Suddenly, he reaches over and snatches her dough right out of her hands. Cien is stunned, asking what he thinks he's doing, while the boy looks on with a smirk. A bad feeling creeps over her, but Cien knows she has to talk to him to figure out what's really going on. Leaning in, she gently asks him what the fight from earlier was all about. As he works the dough, the boy declares that the blue-haired boss is a monster. He claims the boss twists his words, punishing him for what was just a joke, prompting Cien to ask what kind of joke it was. The boy's expression turns terrifyingly dark as he sinisterly stretches the dough, saying he can't tell her, but he adds a chilling offer. If she comes back later, he'll show her exactly what kind of joke it was. Although terrified, Cien agrees, realizing this is far more complicated than simple bullying. The fruits of their labor are ready, perfectly baked, golden brown loaves of bread cool on a rack. In a cute doodle, the kids, including Cien, cheer happily at their successful baking adventure. Cien stands proudly beside the blue-haired boss, who looks away with his arms crossed, trying to act cool. Breaking the silence, the blushing boy gets her attention. "Hey, kid!" With a nervous blush, he asks if she's going to come back again tomorrow. Cien is ecstatic, realizing her plan worked, and the boss has finally warmed up to her. She happily skips alongside the boss, who seems lost in thought. He finally turns to her, blushing, as he quietly says her name. "Well?" "Cien." Cien stops dead in her tracks, completely surprised that he knows her name. How did he know? She never told him. She wonders if he asked someone, but quickly dismisses the thought. Shaking it off, she's just happy that they're finally getting closer as the kids gather around. Meanwhile, her bodyguards, Pat and Matt, continue their surveillance from a discreet distance. Pat is in absolute shock, unable to process what he's seeing. The daughter of the infamous Mirmond villain family is an actual angel, joyfully handing out bread to the poor. The cognitive dissonance is breaking him. Both spies are now weeping, their corrupted souls feeling purified by her sheer wholesomeness. The bakery is open for business. Cian and the kids cheerfully offer free bread to everyone in the neighborhood. A group of local thugs spots the scene, skeptically wondering if the kids are really giving away free food. They plot to just rush in and steal everything, confident they can easily take on a bunch of kids, but their plan is instantly foiled by one of the chefs, who appears with a terrifying aura and growls, "One per person." Cian happily continues her work, handing a basket of fresh bread to grateful townspeople. She scans the growing crowd, confident that her plan to attract local gypsies is working perfectly. But her hopes sink as she realizes the specific fortune teller from the novel is nowhere to be found. She recalls the frustratingly vague description: a gypsy with brown hair, aged 10 to 50, with a tough personality, and maybe a mole. Cian fumes over the useless clues. An age range of 40 years covers basically everyone. Wow. Panicked, she realizes she has to find the shaman before Axel does, as her helpers rush off to get more bread. As Cian contemplates a new strategy, a gruff voice calls out, "You." Two menacing men approach, one angrily asking if she's a noble. He sneers at her, accusingly asking if she came to the poor neighborhood just to pity them. He scoffs at her offering, calling the food tasteless bread. With a furious kick, he screams at her for acting like an annoying do-gooder noble. Pow! The table flies, scattering the bread the children worked so hard to make, leaving them and Cian in total shock. Just then, Ted steps forward, drawing his ornate sword and coolly warning the man to back off, declaring he's done standing by. The thug scoffs at the great noble for bringing a knight, completely unimpressed by Ted's drawn sword. The man angrily rejects her charity, shouting that they don't need her pity while Cian watches him silently. Cian clenches her fist, admitting to herself that finding the fortune teller was her original goal. But she remembers the loneliness of her past life and insists her actions aren't pity. She just wanted to share some warmth. She stands her ground, telling him she simply followed her heart. He can take the bread or leave it. "Don't you dare trample on my friend's feelings," she shouts, defending the hard work of the orphanage kids. The boss is taken aback by her outburst, a blush creeping onto his cheeks as he stares in surprise. Wah! Later, Cian pouts on a bench, lamenting that her plan failed and she's running out of time to win the kids over. Just then, a voice calls her name, Cian Mirmond. It's the boss, who awkwardly admits she showed some guts earlier. He then asks if she's still curious about why he was fighting that other boy, and her ears instantly perk up. "Yes, I'm curious," she says eagerly, and he begins to explain, his expression turning somber. With a heavy heart, he makes a shocking confession. "I can see the future." His story begins in a flashback, walking hand in hand with his mother through a desolate alley. He recalls how his ability manifested, but his innocent happiness was short-lived when he started telling his mother his visions. His mother gave him a stark warning: never let anyone know about his spiritual gift. Not long after, she abandoned him at the orphanage, promising to return, a promise he knew she'd never keep. He believed she ran away because he was strange, and he swore to never reveal his ability to anyone ever again. So he lived at the orphanage, just pretending to be normal, hiding his secret from everyone. He pretended to be normal until he showed up. Cian is horrified as the boss explains the other boy's prank involved piling up the corpses of animals he'd killed. And his visions showed him something terrifying. If left unchecked, that boy will grow up to be a murderer. Overwhelmed, Cian wonders what he could have done, weakly suggesting he could have called the guards. But he explains the guards wouldn't care. "So you're fighting violence with violence?" she asks, trying to understand his logic. "Yeah," he admits, hoping a taste of his own medicine might change things, but adds, "I haven't changed the future yet." He's certain she won't believe him, thinking she'll see him as a freak, but she firmly shakes her head and says, "No, I believe you." As the light hits him just right, she notices the details again, his hair that shines brown, and the faint mole under his lip. A determined tap sounds as she takes a step toward him. "Boss, I believe in your potential," she says earnestly. "And I need someone exactly like you." With renewed purpose, she makes her offer. "Come with me, boss. I'll adopt you," she declares, before realizing the legal logistics are a bit tricky for a 5-year-old. "Fine, I'll raise you then," she insists. But he looks away, dejected. "Sorry, but even my own mom abandoned me," he says quietly. "Why would you be any different?" He admits he never saw a future with her in it, and she realizes meeting him was never part of the original story. So Cien Mirmond, he says firmly, "If you trust me, leave me alone. I have to deal with this guy myself." She's torn. She understands his motives, but feels there has to be a better way than more violence. She grabs his hand, her eyes shining with a new idea. "I'm Cien Mirmond," she declares. "Have you heard of my family?" He looks puzzled. "A villain family? What could you possibly do for me?" "We're experts at reforming bad people. We've got tons of prisons," she says brightly. "We can train you to catch bad guys." "Catch? Bad guys?" he echoes, intrigued. She gives him a confident nod. Yes! She lays out her plan. She'll visit regularly to keep an eye on the wannabe murderer. "And look after all the other kids too," she adds with a brilliant smile. He hesitates, finally starting to give in. "Well, if you insist." But one doubt remains. What if my mom really comes back for me? Cien realizes he's still holding on to his mother's last words. Suddenly, a brilliant idea hits her. "Ah, your mom?" she blurts out. "If you come with me, I'll help you find her." His eyes widen with hope. "Really?" A hopeful blush spreads across his face as they lock pinkies, sealing the deal. "Then it's a promise," Cien declares, making it official. "Okay," he agrees. "But first, you have to find my mom. She went to the Mercy region." Cien's face falls. Mercy? Her mind races, a terrible realization dawning on her. Wait a minute. The Mercy region? Wow! That's the war-torn border where her infamous relative, Axel Mirmond, is currently unleashing chaos. This just got complicated. Cien is stunned, asking why his mom would be in a war zone, and the boy explains she went to work for a high-ranking person. A devious glint appears in Cien's eyes as a horrifying thought connects in her mind. That high-ranking person could only be one man. Thud! The headmaid faints as a man screams, "Seize them!" and accuses the kids of stalking Lady Cien while they're dragged away. A blonde knight reveals that the dark energy he'd been sensing was coming from Pat and Matt all along. Cien is completely bewildered by the accusation. Stalkers? What are you talking about? Pat and Matt are tied up as the headmaid declares them underlings who must be interrogated by the family to find their master. In a cute doodle, the maids glare down at the weeping, captured spies. While Cien points accusingly, her two bodyguards are blushing messes, totally starstruck by her presence, even while tied up. Their minds are filled with hearts as they gush over getting to see the angelic Lady Cien this close. Plop! Overwhelmed by the sheer wholesomeness, the two spies faint on the spot, leaving their captors confused. "Are they dead?" Cien asks worriedly. The blonde knight reassures her they just fainted, thinking he might have gone a bit overboard. With the bad guys caught and the boss agreeing to join them, he thinks things are looking up as the boy blushes in the background. Mission accomplished. Cien beams brightly and announces it's time for them all to go home. The scene transitions to a grand, sprawling mansion under the quiet night sky. Cien barrels through the doors, excitedly announcing her return. A handsome, dark-haired man greets Cien with a radiant smile but stops short, noticing she's brought a new friend with her. Cien happily introduces her new friend from the orphanage, proudly calling him boss. Overcome with emotion, her father clutches his head, praising his daughter's kind heart for bringing the boy to live with them. Cien then points to the two bound men, asking who the scary uncles are and explaining they were caught creeping around. Her father's friendly demeanor vanishes, replaced by a terrifyingly dark aura as he says, "I see," while the spies tremble in fear. Cien volunteers to scold the spies, but her dad gently lifts her up, suggesting he handle the interrogation himself. Cien worries her soft-hearted dad will go easy on them, and decides she'll take a crack at it after he's done. But the spy is in heaven, crying tears of joy, and thinking that being captured and bewitched by Lady Cien is a fate he gladly accepts. As the night deepens over the mansion, his final thought is that just seeing her made everything worth it. Meanwhile, a young blonde boy named Lord Leonhardt arrives, wondering if this is the right mansion, when the fortune-telling boss calls out to him. Now wearing a mask, the boss asks Leonhardt if he's here because something happened to Chestnut. Leonhard explains he's here about Lady Scene and Lord Matthias, beginning to recount the shocking events of the previous night. In a flashback, Cien playfully pokes her dad's cheek, calling him a fool while he blushes. A horrified Leonhard watches from the sidelines, panicking that Lady Scene's life could be in danger for such an act. Cien continues to gleefully tease her dad, calling him a fool who only knows her, leaving Leonhard speechless. Back in the present, Leonhard can't believe it, but the masked boy confirms the unbelievable story is true. The masked boy is deeply impressed, realizing the genius Chestnut actually tamed the fearsome Lord Matthias. An ominous narration explains that the Meerman family has two mad dogs, Lord Matthias and the even more dangerous Lord Axel. After Matthias was disinherited, the bloodthirsty Axel seized power before voluntarily leaving for the battlefield. The masked boy calls Axel terrifying, but Leonhard adds that it seems Lord Matthias is preparing to reclaim his position. Leonhard connects the dots. That's why the mansion is so busy. The masked boy confirms this mansion belongs to Lord Axel. The masked boy announces it's time for him to leave, as he has a lesson to attend with the Duchess. Leonhard eagerly asks to tag along, to talk more about Scene, and the masked boy agrees as long as he calls her Chestnut. Leonhard explains that he's already pledged his loyalty to Chestnut, noting how much the masked boy seems to know about Lady Scene. He confesses to himself that while he loves learning about Scene, he feels strange and possessive hearing about her from other people. Seeing her get close to others makes him anxious, describing his feelings as unpredictable waves. Lost in the depths of his emotions, he wonders what these strange new feelings could possibly be. The two boys arrive at the Duchess's parlor, finding a woman standing with her back to them. They look on in surprise as the woman turns around, wondering why on earth she is here. It's Delphia Meerman, a woman with white hair, dramatically draped over a sofa and complaining that her little master has forgotten her. She adds that the wicked Matthias is ignoring her letters too, while he's shown looking annoyed at his desk. Delphia says she came looking for Cien, but the other woman coldly tells her to leave, stating the child is none of her concern. But Delphia's mood flips instantly as she spots one of the boys, exclaiming over his cute face that she hasn't seen in ages. She offers to teach Cien as well, but the masked boy shuts her down with a firm no, declaring he's the only one who will teach Honeybread. After some convincing, the masked boy agrees to the lesson, secretly thrilled that he'll get to see Chestnut more often. A sudden terrible thought strikes Leonhard. Since the boss lives with Cien, they get to see each other every single day. The masked boy breaks the tense silence, simply saying, "Hey," to a very confused Leonhard. In a separate scene, an angry voice booms from a mansion, ordering Delphia Meerman to get out while Cien remains completely unaware. Meanwhile, a cute, pink-haired Cien wonders why her ear is itching, guessing someone must be talking about her. Elsewhere, Matthias discusses strategy with an aide, who asks if Axel's reliance on a sorcerer is his true weakness. The aide confirms Axel is also sensitive to jinxes, suggesting a psychological attack would be highly effective. A flashback reveals the powerful Axel Meerman is dependent on alcohol and magical potions to endure his own strength. Matthias notes that Axel has always been obsessed with the mystical, thinking to himself that this weakness actually works in their favor. His aide reports that the sorcerer's identity is unknown, but rumors point to a gypsy woman, piquing Matthias's interest. The scene shifts to Cien sitting on her father's lap, asking if he can help find the boss's missing mother. She explains the boss's mother is a gypsy in the Mercy region, who might or might not be a sorcerer. Pleading with puppy dog eyes, Cien begs for his help, and he reluctantly agrees, trying to hide that he was already planning to investigate. Cien beams with joy, thanking her father and explaining they need to find out what kind of person her new friend's mother is. Alone again, Matthias connects the dots, a gypsy sorceress. He wonders if all of this could possibly be a coincidence. Clenching the armrest of his chair, he decides that even if it's not a coincidence, he will force it to be one. His resolve is clear. He cannot allow his precious Cien to be dragged into the Meerman family's dirty power struggles. A beautiful vision of Cien in a sunflower field fills his mind. He wants her to know nothing but happiness. Putting his plan into motion, Matthias orders his aide to go to the Mercy region and find the sorceress immediately. With a chilling look in his glowing red eyes, he gives his final command. If she's the one Cien mentioned, kidnap her. The scene changes to Cien leading a cloaked crew, including Leonhard and the boss, on their next secret operation. Their destination is a high-stakes casino filled with masked figures gambling at the tables. "We came to the casino," Cien announces with a grin, ready to execute her brilliant, if not slightly insane, plan. Her goal: win big, to hire an information guild to find the boss's mother. Knowing this casino hides more than just card games, she reveals its true secret. Hidden somewhere within is the dark auction house, and she's here to find what's inside. The dark auction is a notorious black market for dangerous items, accessible only to those who can win a special game. When asked where to go, Cien points decisively toward a heavily guarded area of the casino. Let's head to the table with the biggest stakes, she declares, aiming for the most dangerous game in the house. Her escorts gasp in horror as they realize she's pointing to the Russian roulette table, where players literally bet their lives. Unfazed, Cien pulls back her hood, her expression firm. "But I must go there," she insists. The game is simple and deadly. Players take turns firing a revolver with a single bullet at their own head. Survive, and you might win the ultimate prize. The dealer must grant any wish the winner desires. But there's a terrifying twist. For some reason, in this game, only the participant can die, making it a rigged death trap. Her companions protest, with Leonhardt desperately offering to take her place, believing his healing powers might save him. Cien immediately shuts him down with a sharp and unwavering no. She turns to her worried friends, asking them to simply believe in her and watch over her, no matter what happens. Her team looks on with anxious faces, but she confidently tells them not to worry as they head inside. Cien boldly demands entry from the guard, announcing she's there for Russian roulette, but he just sees a little kid. Furious at being underestimated, she proudly declares, "I'm no ordinary kid. I am Mirmand." The guard scoffs, doubting that such a cute child could ever come from the fearsome Mirmand family. Her escort steps in, shoving the family crest in the guard's face and demanding he respect Lady Cien, leaving the guard stunned. The guard quickly changes his tune and ushers them in as Cien thinks she needs to practice her villainous authority. She steps into a dark, oppressive room, the only light coming from a single open door. "This is it." As she enters the light, her hair now a striking split of pink and white, she calls out for the dealer, ready to play. A woman in a dark suit appears, calling Cien the youngest to ever come here to die, and thinking what a precious shame it is. Cien looks up defiantly, coolly asking the dealer, "Who said I came here to die?" The dealer lays out the ultimatum. She'll grant a wish if Cien wins, but otherwise she dies. "Simple, isn't it?" she asks smugly. With a confident smile, Cien assures her it's fine, because she has a plan. As Cien takes her seat, her cloaked companions watch nervously from the shadows. The boss and Leonhardt filled with dread. The dealer smirks, noticing Leonhardt, so confident, she thinks, even bringing a healer along. Cien realizes the dealer can perceive people's abilities, but the dealer warns that healers are useless against this gun, telling a nervous Cien her plan is already failing. "That's not my plan at all," Cien declares, though she decides to let the dealer continue with her misunderstanding. She grabs the revolver, announcing that it doesn't even matter. With the gun to her head, Cien confidently states, "I won't die anyway." As her friends watch in terror, she pulls the trigger and with a harmless little click, nothing happens. "Lucky you," the dealer smirks, taking the gun. "Then it's my turn, right?" She places the gun to her own head and pulls the trigger, surviving with a confident grin. "Looks like I pass as well." Placing the gun down, Cien asks the dealer a pointed question. Doesn't something seem off for the owner of this magical tool? A glowing symbol appears on the gun's handle, and the dealer's face fills with shock. "Impossible," she cries, as Cien calmly asks, "What's so impossible?" Cien holds the gun, revealing her ace in the hole. Because she knows the original story, she also knows the gun's ultimate secret. The revolver is a magical tool with a will of its own, structured so that its master can never die from it. In a flashback, she asks the boss if a sentient magical tool could be manipulated by sorcery, and he confirmed it could. Cien reveals her true plan. While the dealer was distracted by the healer, the boss used sorcery to make the gun recognize her as its new master. And while normal magic is blocked in the casino, sorcery, the art of mind manipulation, works just fine. The dealer is stunned, realizing her plan to protect her sister has gone terribly wrong. In the shadows, the boss and Leonhardt realize her brilliant plan never involved healing in the first place. Tseng gives a triumphant wink, holding the gun she just conned her way into owning. Checkmate.